Hi, everyone. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny. Sometimes Colorado. Today is April 23rd. I have returned from the jungles of the Amazon, from being in Manao and going up the river and meeting all the different tribes there, the Satari Mawe and dozens of others. Night canoeing, little paddle and spear fishing, and of course did the bullet ant ceremony, the Tukandira, excuse me. So the ceremony, for those who don't know about it, you actually have to go meet the tribe, spend time with them, break bread with them. And after you do that, then they say, okay, you're a guy we like. So then you go out and you collect the ants. So you have to go find bullet ant hives and you tap the tree with a machete. They get all angry, and you have a little stick, and you grab them with the stick. They start stinging the stick, and then you take them and put them into kind of a palm tree, which is hollow on the inside. And you tap it, then you cap it, and after you've collected about 200 ants or so, then you walk back to the tribe, and then you have to stun the ants. And so there's a certain leaf that contains a sedative for ants. You grind it up and put it in the fluid, and then you pour the ants inside the fluid. You mix it up, and somehow they don't drown. And then they just go paralyzed. Then you take the ants and you weave them into the bullet ant gloves. And after you weave them into the bullet ant gloves, then they go to sleep for about an hour or two. So you put the gloves back up, you go have lunch, then you sit for an hour in deep contemplation of, oh my God, why am I doing this? This is a bad idea. This is going to hurt like hell. And then you go out, they paint your hands black. And after they paint your hands, you go to the ritual. And so you bend over, they put the bullet ant gloves on, and then you have to dance for about 8 minutes to 10 minutes, depending on what song they select. So the chieftain selects the song, and we go and do that. And it's just incredibly painful. Absolutely, brutally painful. And so we did, and learned a lot in the process. I had to go through the whole thing. So as I was initially getting bit, hands started getting numb. I said, oh, okay, I can do this. The problem is that on the other side, the pain starts building and it radiates up your arm into your chest, to your head, your face. And it's the best I can describe it as is kind of a throbbing feeling. This, wah, wah, and just waves of fiery pain. So fire hits you, pulls back a bit. Fire hits you, pulls back a bit. That's basically what we went through. And so I did it with a bunch of the guys. And then we were like, hey, I have a little bit of a cold. Hey, we're good to go. We're jungle warriors now, Satari Mawe. And then we had a chance to go up the river and do all the other really cool and interesting stuff. So what was fascinating is when I posted it on YouTube and I posted on the internet, a lot of criticism about my body weight. Okay, can't take your shirt off anymore on the internet. Some people said I didn't place the ants in the right place. Okay, well, that's what they told me to do. I guess internet people are experts. The chieftain told me to put it in a certain place, but you guys know more than the chieftain of the Satari Mawe tribe that's done this hundreds of times in the last 30 years. Great. Or something else. We've reached a point in society where nobody can be happy for people. Wow, that guy went and did something very hard and very courageous. And it took a lot of guts to go down to the Amazon and go and do something very hard and overcome that as a personal challenge. And it obviously is meaningful to me. But the hatred is so strong that if you dislike somebody, they ever do anything that's virtuous or hard or interesting or unique, it has to in some way be corrupt or wrong or evil or bad. And it can't be real. It has to somehow be jaded. And that culture is so extraordinarily toxic and devastating to any concept of progress. Can you imagine that when you hear something, the very first thing you do is you don't talk about the thing. You first get oriented based on whether you like the person or not. And if you like the person, the thing is automatically good. If you dislike the person, the thing is automatically bad. That's 2025 in a nutshell. And when we look at the budget right now, I'm seeing a lot of that. Here's the thing, input output, we've made a lot of mistakes, but we've done a lot of good. We were paid about $36 million worth of Bitcoin and about $6 million worth of ADA. Long time ago, 10 years ago, to go and do something crazy, to go build a cryptocurrency ecosystem with partners who were difficult, who in some cases didn't deliver, through environments and atmospheres that had BitConnect, OneCoin, FTX, Luna, and dozens of other things. All the markets up, all the markets down. Today, right now, Cardano is an ecosystem worth around $25 billion, give or take. Millions of people in it, thousands of dApps. It's in the top 10, and it's regarded as one of the great successes of the cryptocurrency space off of that initial funding. We assembled one of the largest teams of scientists and engineers in the entire world, very skilled engineers to do some of the most difficult work the world has ever seen for cryptocurrency engineering. Formal methods work, 240 academic papers, many of which are peer-reviewed with over 10,000 citations. We did an enormous amount of work figuring out how to write novel and new protocols, a brand new peer-to-peer stack, new consensus protocols, a complete on-chain governance system that took 2 years to design and deploy. And then obviously enough flexibility that people could come in and learn how to use the thing and build their own stuff, as evidenced by Akin, for example, and the dozens of other things. And we're at a precipice where many people are starting to learn enough about what has been constructed to build their own clients, their own nodes, and to build their own tools. Institutions are forming. And those institutions that are forming, like Intersect and Pragma, they're starting to showcase that they can do stuff, but they're very young and they're very new. And there's a transition from a founding set of entities to community entities that are community-led and organized. And within 12 months to about 24 months, we should have multiple clients written in different languages, strong institutions, and strong processes about how we want to come together and organize the ecosystem as a whole. I was given to build the ecosystem 35 million plus 6 million worth of ADA, give or take, depends on how you cut up the markets. We currently have, depending on the price of ADA, 1.7 billion ADA and over $1 billion worth of market value there. That's what we left behind for all of you guys to decide what to do. And I see these comments on the internet of basically like, well, you should be paid nothing. You already received a lot of ADA. You didn't finish the roadmap. You're greedy. You're being overpaid. There should be an aggressive competitive RFP process. We need to vet and see if you guys are real guys. Here's the thing. The engineers I can have them build new projects. I can have them build new companies. I can have them build high margin products, or I can have them be time and materials engineers. I have zero interest in the people that work for me being time and material engineers. It's a race to the bottom. With AI generated code, with outsourcing, the average rate per developer will go down year after year. So your margins continue to shrink. When you talk about a high-end engineer, a person who's a PhD in computer science, a formal methods engineer, a person who's a domain expert in this field, they will never be price competitive with a bachelor's degree engineer fresh out of school in India, aided by Windsurf. But you're competing with that in a lowest cost bit system. And which institutions have proven that they're good counterparties? If Microsoft comes to me, as they have in the past, and we talk around an idea of let's do something together, let's write a paper together, let's write some code together, let's figure out something together. That's a credible counterparty. It's a 50-year-old company that built Windows. It's a 50-year-old company that literally built a new form of matter in a quantum computer. It's a 50-year-old company that's worth trillions of dollars and has hundreds of thousands of the most skilled engineers in the world working for it. It's a credible counterparty. We can have deep and technical conversations and deeply understand the nuances of what they want to accomplish, and nobody's wasting each other's times. No institution in Cardano has reached a level of maturity to match something like that. So if they're going through an RFP process, it's bike shedding. at the end of the day. It's bike shedding. People have never delivered a product. People have never written code at scale. People have never been accountable to being there at Christmas Day, and this did happen. 2:00 in the morning, something breaks, and we have to skip Christmas to fix it, are now sitting there saying, yeah, well, I don't like how much you're charging. Let's just shave 20% off of that because this guy over here says he can do it for 20% less. Okay, so I'm working for free or at a loss. And the opportunity cost is those very same engineers could be building dApps that are cross-chain. Those very same engineers could be building an AI product. Those very same engineers could be working on an electronic health record system for my medical company. And all of the growth potentials in those are in the billions. So I'm going to burden them with losing money, have a counterparty that doesn't understand what they're asking for when they could be doing something else. And they say, you owe it to the community. You know what? I'll do this for you. We'll get Laos done to RFP, and we will find a great qualified company like Twig to finish it. Sure. There you go. I can't guarantee it'll actually enter production because now we're in a multi-client environment, and I don't control what TX Pipe does and Blink Labs does and Harmonic does, but at least I can speak for the Haskell side. We're more than happy to write that code. But when we look beyond Laos, what are you paying me for then? Just to be a time and materials contractor? Or do you want the strategy? Do you want me showing up every day fighting for Cardano? Do you want me to give input where I think we can go to 10x the ecosystem? And what you're basically saying is, we want that for free. That's what these people are saying. Or we're unhappy with what's been delivered. Would you be happier with Luna? Would you be happier with EOS? Would you be happier with IOTA? Would you be happier with NXT? Would you be happier with all the hundreds of projects that have come and gone throughout the last 10 years since Cardano has launched? We're still in the game. We're still relevant. We still have liquidity. We still know how to navigate things. We're still mentioned. People still comment on Cardano. It's still on the list. It was just added to the reserve. The President of the United States was talking about it. We're still in the game. And what you're basically saying is, none of that matters. You've been paid already. Okay? So it's a referendum. And, you know, Project Blueprint in the roadmap you guys already approved is about writing a set of blueprints so diverse development teams can form. We went to organize and brought people together for a node diversity workshop. We showed up. We talked to them. We figured out a lot of standards, and we've been pushing for a budget process to include full funding of diverse node teams. We were the ones pushing for institutions to form, like Intersect. The foundation pushed for Pragma to be formed, amongst others. And these institutions, over time, will grow into credible counterparties that are more than capable of running ecosystems. But we all knew that 2025 was a transition year. We just approved the Constitution in February. We just approved it. We're still preparing for elections to replace the interim Constitutional Committee with the final Constitutional Committee in the second half of this year. We're still sorting out what are the official conferences. We're still getting used to voting with DREPs and these types of things. It's a transition year. And there's plenty of money in the Treasury. Fiscal conservatism was there. And whether the NCL is 350 and we spend 90% of that, or the NCL is 500 and we spend 70% of that, whatever, there's going to be an enormous amount of ADA left behind for year 2026. And, you know, in year 2026, we now have 8 months to talk about a process for next year together, about how do we build it in a direction where we have everything we want. And year after year, that process can get better. And it's not going to break Cardano. But what you're basically doing is saying, let's alienate the people that got us here. Let's slow down everything while we're just about to enter a bull market. And let's make Cardano a very unattractive place for people to build, when our competitors have billions of dollars and they're very loose with their money in a high growth time period. And that's our strategy. And then you go to the venture capitalists and say, ADA is unwilling to invest in its own people, but you should invest in Cardano. That's what you're saying. I think what it is a referendum not about what has been done and where we want to go, but rather some people are trying to use this process because they're disgruntled with input output, me, or something that happened in the ecosystem, and they're sour grapes. And they're trying to hijack this process for the intent purpose of basically settling scores, getting even, and proving that these people are bad actors, myself included. That's what they're trying to do. And if you let them do it, you let them do it. As a DREP, it's your decision. This is what decentralization basically means. Look, I'm going to be okay one way or the other. I am proud of the work that we did with Cardano. I spent a decade of my life. If you look at the pictures, this wasn't white when I started. I had a lot more of this up here when I started, and this belly was a lot smaller when I started. And it's not because of a lack of discipline. It's because I travel 200 to 250 days a year. You know that because you see the fucking pictures at the conferences. I fought hard in the trenches, and every single thing I said I was going to do, I did. And we know how to finish the original roadmap. And that's what we're doing. And we're trying to organize a relationship so that we can stay in the ecosystem and be productive without smothering all the growth of other people. And it's hard at times because there's a lot of arguments and conversations that I want to be in. I still possess an enormous amount of ADA, probably one of the largest data holders in the world outside of Binance and a few others. I said publicly we would not vote because we would skew the entire vote, and then the vote wouldn't have any legitimacy. Because people would say, oh, well, that was just Charles voting for himself. And it was important that people step up and independent leadership step up. We said we would not be a DREP. We said we would no longer serve on the Constitutional Committee after the final elections and the interim period is over. And we've been stepping away from a lot of these governance institutions. And we wanted to go from building Cardano to building on Cardano again and again. Even in the Glacier drop with Midnight, Cardano has a massive and outsized proportion of the supply being distributed. If it was just by market cap, it'd be very small. Cardano is getting the largest share. That's how much I love and care about this ecosystem. But part of love and care is not entering toxic and abusive relationships. And toxic and abusive relationships say, we don't acknowledge what you've done. We want you to work for free or at a loss. And we're going to hold unrealistic and unnecessary standards against you. And also your counterparties are not qualified to actually instruct you to do the things you want to do. That's an abusive relationship. And it makes no sense for us as an organization to be involved in such a thing. You as DREPs get to decide what type of ecosystem you want to have. What's been left behind is a giant treasury, a fertile environment with many dApps and approaches and philosophies, different institutions that have different governance strategies, and a lot of options. And I have a beautiful roadmap I gave you guys with Bitcoin DeFi and Cardano becoming the largest AVS system, fully realizing the power of extended UTXO, how we do telescoping scalability with Ouroboros Paris and Ouroboros Praus and Laos, and these things include fast finality, intense Babel fees, all kinds of really amazing things that I think put us best in class, and a really strong, robust on-chain governance system, which I think is our biggest USP. That's what I've left you. And you have to decide whether you value that, and you have to decide whether the people who came up with that are still people that you want around. But if you treat them like shit and you abuse them and criticize them, or say we're dishonest and corrupt, you shouldn't be so surprised when those people say, you know what, life is too short. There's other things to do. There's more interesting projects to work on. And we've gotten to that critical mass. No matter what, Cardano is going to be around. It'll be here. No matter what, Cardano is here to stay. It's permanent. And that's my legacy. And I'm proud of that. I really am. And it's taken 10 years' time to get to a point where Cardano is a self-sustaining organism. And you as members of that organism, you have to make decisions about where you want to take it and where you want to go. Do you want to be number one on CoinMarketCap? Are you prepared to take the risks and invite people in and make them care about such things? Or do you not want to do that? And do you just want to stagnate, stay in the top 10, top 20, top 30? Do you want to make Cardano about one particular thing and really go all in on that? We have RealFi at IO, We're doing lending in Africa. That's going to grow every year. We never stopped that plan. I love people come and criticize us. Well, what about Ethiopia? What about Ethiopia? We came in, we followed every law and standard. We had signed contracts from the Ministry of Education. We spent years in jurisdiction. We got actual students on our system. We built a Tala Prism. We turned it over actually to Hyperledger and worked with them, with Hyperledger Dentists. We never got paid once. We repeatedly had to travel to places that were functionally a war zone. We were publicly criticized by CoinDesk and others for working with a genocidal regime. Our own employees were physically threatened. Their safety was threatened. In many cases, they were worried they would be arrested by the government, but we stuck it out for year after year after year after year. And when it became clear the government had no intention of doing anything in the blockchain space, and every promise and commitment they made, like, for example, when they said they were going to get rid of capital controls and legalize crypto, and they didn't do it, only then did we say, you know what, it is what it is, and we walked away. And they said that's a misintegrity on my side. And they refer to Calcasa, piece of garbage going around, who, by the way, conveniently omits all of these facts. And that very same team is now in Kenya. It's already deployed tens of thousands of loans to people, which will bring us real-world assets into the Cardano ecosystem with real yield into the Cardano ecosystem. And it built a phenomenal relationship with Hyperledger. And we now get to offer identity products that work with Cardano for the enterprise space in Cardano. And they can be used everywhere, whether it be Argentina or other places. That's the tenacity that we have. But we don't get there. And there's no nuance in these conversations anymore. And there's no credit for the attempt when 90% of activities fail. We're still here. We're still alive. We're still going. So you have to make some decisions. And you say things like, this guy right here, you're not even working on Bitcoin DeFi. That's a lie. Just straight up lie. We have a dedicated team on it. We're partnered with Fairgate. We're part of the Fairgate Alliance that's been put together, working on BitVMX. We right now have developers writing a UPLC to RISC-V compiler so Aiken and Plutus can compile to Bitcoin script. We're working on the bridge. We're working on the wallet integration. This month, Bitcoin support for Lace. And the very next update of that pathway is Bitcoin DeFi on Lace, where it's literally a button you click to enable DeFi mode for Bitcoin. But yet person says this with no accountability whatsoever. The lie, it just propagates. And we do it in public, like Leos, for example. Every month there's a public meeting. People can see the progress. They can see the GitHub repos. People are talking about it. You know, there's so much interest and demand in Bitcoin DeFi, we're having to set up a satellite event next to Bitcoin to 2025 because we can't fit it all into a keynote. This is the kind of stuff, though, that kills an ecosystem. If this is how you act, what do you expect to gain? And why would people want to build there? So grow up. Honestly speaking, grow up. Take a hard, long look in the mirror and ask yourself who your friends are and who's been around. It's going to be hard to find many founders who have the pedigree, the legacy, and put in the time that we put in and the effort that we put in this ecosystem. And careful what you wish for, because if you drive those types of people out, you don't get another replacement for them. You just go into a death spiral and things fall apart. You know, a lot of good people, though. And I've met them and I've worked with them and I enjoy them. And what makes me sad is when they got driven out too. I saw people during the constitutional debate that have been in the ecosystem since 2016 leave in frustration because of how toxic certain people have come. And I can empathize with them greatly. It's one thing to say you disagree and here's the reasons why. It's another thing to be personal and attack people and say people are dishonest and evil and monsters and they're thieves. It's another thing. Anyway, is what it is. You just keep going through. As you see, I have a very high tolerance for pain, as evidenced by the bullet ants. And boy, that was a lot of fun. And we got that done. And we'll just keep moving forward. And I do honestly, look in the mirror first, dude. Okay, Casey. Well, tell me, where did I cause that? Go ahead. Anyway, voting is a referendum on all this. For my part, I do believe that the NCL will pass tomorrow, and I do believe we'll get the budget done and we'll move forward. And year by year, it'll get better, and we'll get where we need to go. This is more of just a call, for people to be returned to civility. What was your personal goal with the Bullet Ant experience? Well, there's three selves that you have. There's the person you want to be, you aspire to be. There's the person you think you are, and then there's the person you fear that you are. And these are three separate selves. And when you do something like the Bullet Ant ceremony, what happens is all three of them collapse together. And that's just the reality. It's just who you are. You become that person. So you have a lot of fear, especially that hour before you do the ceremony. You're sitting here thinking, God, can I do this? Can I survive? We'd done a full medical checkup, and they said, well, look, we can only do so much. But if you get to such an extreme threshold, go into anaphylactic shock, you can have a heart attack. There's all this other stuff. So we thought about all the dimensions of that. And we did as much planning as we could. And one of the guys there said, hey, you want a cigar? I said, hell yeah. And I was just smoking that cigar, sitting, and this wave of peace came over me. And I said, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're moving in the right direction. No matter what happens, if I collapse, if am I stoic and I look good, or I just am a weenie, there's some honesty in all of that. And you really get to know who you actually are. And what was great is, I was stoic the whole way. I went through it, and it was horrible, and it got worse, especially afterwards. But, we got through the whole thing. And the very next day we're spearfishing and, doing night paddles and running through the jungle, sleeping in the jungle, all this type of stuff. And it gave me a lot of strength, because we got to get Midnight out this year. And I want Midnight to be in the top 10. I want it to be one of the best cryptocurrencies ever built. And I think it adds a lot of value to our ecosystem. But you have to be a warrior to be able to do this. And so there's who you want to be, but then who you need to be able to actually succeed and grow. And so it was a good transition point for me. And it gave me a good foundation to be able to stand on and say, okay, I have what I need. And there's a lot of work to do. It's going to be hard as hell. Waking up really early, going to bed really late at night. Ton of travel, ton of meetings, a lot of workshops, a lot of engineering, a lot of partnerships, a lot of negotiations. But it's like that moment where you say, you know what, we'll be okay. We'll figure it out. Thoughts on Paul Atkins as the new chair of the SEC? He's going to do a good job. He's going to fix a lot of the problems that Gensler did. Unfortunately, the Democrats have decided to just continue the strategy. And if they can't do it at the federal government, now doing it at the state government, you have the state of Oregon suing Coinbase again, literally with the same lawsuit that Gensler brought in. I don't understand for the life of me what the Democrats seek to accomplish here. I really don't. I was interviewed by Reuters when I was in France, and the Reuters gal asked me 6 times about Trump coin and World Liberty Finance in a 1-hour time period. And I looked her straight in the face. And I said, I'm not here to help you write a negative article on Donald Trump. I'm just not going to do that. You're going to have to figure that out by yourself. It's insane to me that they've chosen to dig in and say crypto's bad and evil and rally their base in that particular way and use every avenue to harass our industry, a legitimate industry that's trying to change and grow the world. So Paul's part of the solution. And at the federal level, we are where we need to be. We just have to codify it with laws, and that'll happen by August. And at that point, there's a lot more work to do, but then we'll have to go state by state. And it could be the place where blue states, excuse me, Blue states are basically no go for crypto. If you are a Democrat, you should tell your Democrat congressmen and senators and local state representatives that if they're anti-crypto, you won't vote for them. They have to somehow get it through their head that they will lose elections if they keep doing this, and then they'll stop. That's the only way to get them to stop. They're just so fanatical about trying to kill crypto in the United States. And that's their actions. It's not me saying it. The state of Oregon has no reason to bring a blue sky lawsuit against Coinbase, but they did. Charles, have you checked Matera Protocol yet? It brings a lot of liquidity data. Yeah, I think those are the guys that are doing the indexes. I need to meet the team and spend some time with them. I'm very excited about this idea that people can buy an index of Cardano native tokens and put them through. What that'll do is it creates a lot of cross-chain liquidity. But that was one of the reasons why we built Midnight. It's like two big bridges. There's the Bitcoin DeFi initiative, and then there's the Midnight initiative. Midnight connects Cardano over time to everything in the cryptocurrency space. And Bitcoin DeFi intimately connects Bitcoin and Cardano together in a way that works for Bitcoin. And if you're talking about Bitcoin Maxi, they say there is only one God, there's Bitcoin. That's it. Transaction fees have to be paid in Bitcoin. Rewards have to be in Bitcoin. It has to feel and look like we're just using an extension of the Bitcoin network. If there's any third-party token singamabob, you're dead. There's nothing there. The good news is because of Babel fees, beautiful for Cardano. It's like tourism for us. They pay in dollars. They don't know that they're using the local currency. They don't care. But it creates demand for that local currency, ADA. Babel fees does that. And it's a two-sided reaction. So once those things are in play, then these indexes are awesome because you can list them. And then what people can do is in their native currency, whether it be Ether, Sol, or Bitcoin, they can buy exposure to all of the top 100 or top 200 Cardano native assets. So the whole Tap Tools index or something like that. And then boom, it rebalances ever so often, but it brings a lot of liquidity and demand into Cardano on the dexes inside those places. And those have potentially higher returns than the underlying asset. So I think these protocols are very necessary, and it's exciting to see that they took the time to go and build that. And I'll get to know the team here in a little bit. We'll spend some time with them. JJ's going to get around to it. We've been working hard on it. When are you starting your telecoms biz with World Mobile? So I met in France at Blockchain Paris with Mickey. We spent some time together, and we got a group of people that are working with him at setting up the micro ISP in Gillette. And I said, look, I got to learn how this works by running a business, and I need to make that business profitable. Because if I have it, I have a franchise model, and then I could take it throughout all of Wyoming. I could take it to South Dakota. I could take it to Montana, and be a nice kind of multi-state micro ISP. We also talked about finalizing some formal relationships that we've kind of always had but never documented, papered. And then also, how do we get World Mobile to get to the partner chain side of things? And it's next in line right after Midnight. So we're working in that direction. Midnight's building a beautiful turnkey framework. I'd like for the second partner chain to be World Mobile. We got to find a way to make that happen. And it's not going to be too hard. It's just, we got to figure it out. And they've done a lot of stuff. They were on Cosmos. They did the layer 3 thing on Base. And then obviously they have infrastructure in Cardano. In World Mobile's view, in my view, I think that token needs to be available in every ecosystem. because every single user of cryptocurrency needs connectivity. It is a universal concern. I think a partner chain is the only way to service what they want long term. There's just gray area in between about how do we get there and what do we need to do to get there. And I've been in constant contact with Mickey about that, and JJ's been kind of negotiating hard on the step-by-step process. And we can only move so quickly because Midnight is already taking an enormous amount of resources. And there's a huge team that's working really hard to get it over the line. About 50-60% of what they're building is just for Midnight. The rest is a turnkey kit for partner chains to be used again and again, like the Glacier Drop mechanism using Hydra. That's a universal system. The Partner Chains SDK is a universal system. The bridge infrastructure is a universal system. The dual token model with one token on Cardano, the other token on the partner chain, and the same for the listing and all this other stuff. And we had to go and backfill a lot of things. The foundation never really did any work at all with a lot of the professional infrastructure around cryptocurrency. So things like custodians, for example, wallet support with respect to Cardano native asset, Cardano native token listing. So we had to go talk to Copper and Fireblocks and Zodia and blockchain.com and bitcoin.com and Brave and all these others, and spend tens of millions of dollars doing the integration deals, not just for Midnight, but for all Cardano native assets. Should have been done by the foundation. They didn't do it. So we had to go and do that. But now that's all in place. It's a lot easier to list them. And SNEC has done great work in building the relationship up with Kraken. And World Mobile is doing a very good job building the relationship with Coinbase. And so all those stars are aligning, and they're getting where they need to go. And just takes time, and it's one of the most important and longest lasting relationships we have in the ecosystem. And it's connecting the unconnected is a very important part of what we want to do in Cardano. Please discuss Midnight tokenomics. Not yet. There's going to be a white paper published with all the Midnight tokenomics and a whole go-to-market campaign to explain them. Dual token model. One lives on the Midnight ledger. One lives on Cardano. One is deflationary. The other is a capacity unit. And there's a lot of magic with that. Anyway, it'll all be explained in a paper, and people can see how it all comes together. And I'm very proud of it, very happy. We're working real hard at using AI to go through all of the tokenomics. We have this giant RAG database with it. And we're doing our very final review, and then we'll publish the paper, and then Glacier Drop. So what you're looking for here, he says, sorry, bro, I can't give lawyer access to my keys. I really want to know Charles's views. I don't want my crypto to be at loss forever if something happens. What you're looking for is something called a dead man switch. Basically, a dead man switch is a smart contract where if you don't do anything, a proof of life for some period of time, all the funds get swept to some trusted third party. And then there's instructions with that trusted third party of what to do and who should have access to it, typically defined in your will. So one of the things that we're working with Lace on is how to build a dead man switch into Lace as a premium product. So you have a free Lace and a premium Lace, and you just pay a monthly subscription. And that's one of several things that you would get. And basically, you can set it up after going through KYC, a next of kin setup. And if you die, your crypto gets swept in 180 days or whatever your time period is to that custodian. And then the people who are designated would go through a KYC step and be able to recover the crypto. This also means if you lose your keys, you know that you have a finite period of time before you recover your crypto, because you won't do anything with that crypto for that period of time. Then it gets swept into the account, and you can go through KYC yourself. So it's a clever hack. It's called a dead man switch, and it can be done for Cardano, and we're going to build one and open source it, and we'll build it into Lace at some point. And I think that solves a lot of the estate planning. And what's cool is it dovetails beautifully with what we built, Hyperledger Identis, because you can get a DID to establish your identity, and then you can establish DIDs for the other people, and then they designate those identifiers in your will. And then you could actually hash and sign your will and then append it to the Cardano blockchain as a reference point. So it becomes a legally admissible document. Do you think 350 million ADA is too much sell pressure? I see these things. People have no idea. The current liquidity of Cardano, 350 million ADA could be liquidated in about a month, with affecting the market only about 1 to 3 cents, 2 to 4 worst case scenario, depending upon the sale pattern that you use. It's called an iceberg order. It's done all the time in Wall Street. There's dozens of firms that do this, and there's even liquidation businesses in the crypto sector that do this. So when, for example, a government seizes crypto, or some person goes out of business and they can seize crypto, they sell that block to a liquidation business. The liquidation business icebergs it out and sells it through. So a responsible firm like Wave or somebody else could sell this 350 million ADA, not affect the market. Take a few months to do it, very slow dripping, or a month if you want to do it quickly. But instead, all these people say, oh my God, it will collapse ADA and everything will fall down. Billions of dollars worth of ADA are traded on a weekly basis. 175 million is not going to affect that if you do it right. You just have to know how to iceberg. And there's plenty of people who do that for a living, whether it be Jane Street or GSR or Wave or others. That's another thing I know, being in the space for 15 years. And when you vote yes on our budget, you're voting yes for a person around who knows how to do these things. If you vote no, you got to figure it out. These are the things. Think it through. Why don't you make Cardano proof of work? Why don't you convert your car to a steam engine? I mean, it would still go, right? For multi-resource consensus with Minotaur, would you be able to stake stable coins? You know, I had this discussion with Silvio Macaulay. He sent me one of his papers to review about 9 months ago, give or take. And we had a long discussion about back and forth on how these things would work with stable coins. It is possible to do an AVS system with it. And I think Silvio has a really good idea on it. Update on the Hoskinson Health Center. Think about moving my family now from Canada to Wyoming. Well, you should come. We love Canada. You know, as much as I love Canada, Wyoming is God's country. It is amazing. We're moving along. Grand opening is still slated for July 4th for the expansion. It'll be 70,000 square feet. We have another 53,000 square feet that we're going to roll over and build at the UPS building that we bought right next to it. So we got to demo that and start construction. And that biotech center will have all kinds of stuff. Surgery center and the multi-place hyperbarics will be based there. We'll have infusions. Upstairs is a very extensive lab facility with bioreactors, exosome processing, stem cell processing. And then in the basement, we have a very specialized lab that we've constructed for special projects. You know, we have all those things there. 70,000 square feet will be the lab expansion for the medical lab. That's CLIA lab. And then you got the image center, so CAT scan and MRI, 3 Tesla MRI, all the AI servers that we have there, 40, I think, existing excisional exam rooms, a lot of procedure rooms that we've basically put in. So much larger size, because we want to get to about 350, 400 patient encounters per day with that facility. And likely what we'll do is convert the original 10,000 footprint into an urgent care facility and do some procedures there as well that a lot of our specialists want to do. Do I need a PC for Lace Wallet or is it mobile? We are right now working on the mobile client. It's being built down in Argentina. There's a dedicated localized team right there. JJ helped set that up with Brandon, and they're doing a great job with it. You should start an insurance company. And funny you mentioned that. We've been thinking about it. Healthcare insurance is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I'd like to do direct primary care with what we have, and we've also been exploring self-insured plans. But Jesus, it's the system is stacked against you. The whole healthcare system is the most bureaucratic, just soulless entity, and they don't really care about good outcomes. They don't care about creativity. It's pretty bad, but we're working on it. Where in Wyoming is the health center? It's in Gillette, Wyoming. It's in the northeast part of the state. Oh, well, there's the hands. Still have some of the pain on it. The stings go away within 48 hours. They just swell up. There's a really fast recovery with bullet ants. That's why they use it as a rite of passage, because if you were laid up for 2 months, the other tribes would go and kill you. Charles, are you concerned about the super volcano in Yellowstone? If that thing blows, everybody on Earth dies. So I would rather have a front row seat than hide in Australia and slowly die. You running a profit yet, or in a startup state? We're getting into that direction, but some of the things that you would do to maximize profit, we've stepped aside from. For example, we've been doing a lot of free healthcare for the community, and also a lot of the primary care physicians are told they have to see like 20 patients a day to 30 patients a day, which is just nuts. And we said, no, keep it at 12 to 16. So, the profit will come later with the tail. And I didn't worry too much about being aggressive, because I wanted better physicians and a better work-life balance for those physicians, because a lot of them have a dual role to do research as well with anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And those are hyper-profitable product lines. And so that kind of backfills it. You also, in medicine, make all your money from procedures. You don't make it from patient counters. The RVUs just don't make sense. If you were running the Ethereum Foundation, what would you do differently in a broad sense? Well, the number one problem Ethereum has is that they took an easy road out where they did three things wrong. So first off, wrong protocols. They have the wrong accounting model, they have the wrong virtual machine, and they have the wrong consensus model. All of these were self-inflicted wounds. People told them not to do it. They did it, and they got where they needed to go. Second, what they chose to do to solve these problems is put in all these weird slashing economics and layer twos and other things. And now they're living with all of the consequences of these types of things. And third, they really don't have a good on-chain governance system. So really what needs to happen is you need a parallel track with solving all those three things. First off, you have to solve your technological problems. So the current protocol they have for proof of stake is wrong, and they need to wean themselves off of that protocol gradually. And I think Ouroboros Laos, this whole telescoping protocol design is the way to go. And there are certainly other ways you can go, but I think the object model of SWI would be probably the best model for them. SWI solved a lot of things. Narwhal and Tusk is good. The dev model is not so bad. I think it is good to go to RISC-V. That's a really good decision for Vitalik to make. It makes a lot of sense. But the accounting model also has to be kind of revised a little bit. And that's why the SWI style approach is better. If you want to stay on accounts, you have to move to like Anomia. You have to do intents. And something like RISC-V with intents with an object model like SWI probably would fit their ecosystem quite well. And then Narwhal and Tusk style consensus is probably good enough for them, because they'll always be somewhat centralized with that. And then they have to, second path, build an on-chain government so they actually can solve all these crazy problems with upgrading the system and rallying people and coordinating people. And then they have to find a way to have the layer twos not be parasitic. And unfortunately, I don't see a path on how to do that easily. It's going to be a very hostile divorce to resolve these types of things, because the tokenomics are what they are. That's why we thought a lot about how to build a layer 2 ecosystem in Cardano that's non-parasitic, but it's actually symbiotic. That's what Midnight is doing with Cardano. So we have the right accounting model. We have the right consensus model. We have the right virtual machine model, because we're already on RISC-V because of the Bitcoin DeFi stuff that we're doing. And that's always there, and it can easily be integrated into Midgard as an extension. And Hydra is like hand in glove, the type of stuff that you need. And we already have the on-chain government. And, it's kind of weird now, but it'll be awesome in 3 to 5 years. For them at their scale and size, it'll take 5 to 7 years to build an on-chain government. So I don't think Ethereum will survive, more than 10 years to 15 years. The layer twos will continue to suckle out all of the alpha, and people will start fighting, and it'll get harder and harder for Vitalik to be able to hold it together through sheer force of will. And users will gradually migrate to other places, and then they're going to get eclipsed by Bitcoin DeFi, because once that turns on, the TVL will be larger than Ethereum. And a lot of people will start migrating in that particular direction. And that paradigm's in UTXO, so very naturally starts moving people in that direction. And the other thing is they're being eaten alive by Solana and Sui and these other things. So brilliant project. It's just victim of its own success, like MySpace or any of these other things that have a lot of network effect and momentum. BlackBerry is another example. But people have fundamentally different paradigms that over the long term are intrinsically superior. And they creep up on you. Like Perplexity could destroy Google if they're not careful. Every year it gets a little better. It starts getting more and more people. And then you start noticing, like, hang on a second here. 85% of all the searches I did were with Perplexity. I don't see any ads. It's easy to use. I can get very exacting answers. I can be, it just tells me the answer. Like Google. Go to Google, you search on Google, and you're just like, God, okay, how many people have diabetes in the state of North Dakota who are over the age of 55? It's a question, right? You'll get some websites. You have to go to the websites. You have to scan through the website, see if there's a table or anything like that. You go to Perplexity, it thinks for a bit and just gives you an answer. That's much better search. That's what you want, not where to find what you want. So when these new paradigms come, if you don't tackle them immediately, they kill you very quickly. And that's where Ethereum is at. Without RFPs, what other tools do DREPs have to ensure treasury-funded work is a good value means? So it doesn't mean there's no milestones or things like that. You can have an accountability and governance structure there. RFPs basically mean that there's going to be a group of people who write down all the stuff that you want in exacting detail. People bid on it. There's a group of people then that filter out and then negotiate with the people bidding and then award those people. Okay, so that whole process takes at least 3 months. It can take up to a year for an RFP process. And then all of a sudden, think about all the paperwork and bureaucracy. So let me get this straight. With Catalyst, everybody's really angry over all the paperwork they have to file, all the work they have to do to scrape by and get some money. And then what you want to do is put these onerous processes in place to go and have the very same people that you were already going to give jobs to go as a formality through that process. Are we going to bring new people in through this process? Really? Okay, well then how are we going to score and rate these vendors? Is it by cost, track record, quality, and also what is the roadmap? You guys approved the roadmap as an extension of the IO roadmap. So we're currently curating that. So you're going to have an unrelated group of people to IO go ahead and write RFPs to execute the IO roadmap that you guys approved. And then they'll try to make a decision of whether a vendor is qualified to execute the vision that IO put on the table. Doesn't make any sense at all to you. And oh, by the way, when IO bids, they'll be, oh, well, there's conflict of interest here. We have to disqualify IO. Or people are getting crazy. They're like, we want fully audited financials and all this other stuff. Oh, okay. So a large company like Tweeg or Galois is going to come and open up private books to bid on something. The price is the fucking price. How much we make is our business, not your business. I'm sorry. You don't go when you go to a concrete vendor and say, hey, can you bid on this concrete pour? Yeah, it'll be $250 a cubic yard. Can I see audited financials of your company? I want to know everything about your company, your operations. I want to know how much profit you're making too on that as well. They'll be like, go fuck yourself. I'm just going to go pour concrete down the street for somebody else because they'll take the $250 per cubic yard. Okay, so this just shows the blatant inexperience that people have with this process. So what we had on the table is, let's set up a smart contract. Sunday Labs is writing it. They're going to do a demo here in a little bit. Let's have a 3 of 5 key holder situation, get multiple institutions together, and have a coalition bid out on large packs of work. And that coalition has an oversight mechanism. And if for whatever reason that doesn't work, then the key holders of the smart contract, which holds the ADA that gets paid out in installments to them, can stop payment. And whatever's left over in that smart contract at the end of the year gets swept back into the treasury. It seems a lot more sensible. And what happens is that now you have 7 months to discuss what a future RFP process could look like and how to build institutions to a point where they're credible. It's so bizarre. People are like, we hate Intersect. They're incompetent. They're overly bureaucratic. They're so bad. We're going to create our own institutions, and people did. But then also we want them to be in charge of the entire procurement process for the entire ecosystem. Pragma is going to go to Intersect. The foundation is going to go to Intersect. IO is going to go to Intersect. Emergo is going to go to Intersect. When in the same breath, you're saying Intersect is bureaucratic, incompetent, and overly process-oriented and doesn't represent the community. It's just nuts. Spend the next 7 months and figure out 2026, and let's just finish the original roadmap. What materially is going to be different? The developers are going to go deliver Laos. The developers are going to go and work on Paris. The developers are going to go and enhance Plutus and get V4 ready to go. The developer is going to go and write all the blueprints down, project blueprint. No diversity. You're going to have Pragma's guys working on their other nodes. You have Project Acropolis. We're going to explore how to build a service-oriented node, a microservice node for Cardano. You get all these new MacGuffins and features and things like that. And we're going to go do Bitcoin, DeFi, and AVS. And what it costs is what it costs. We went and looked at the wages. We put a slight profit margin in, but not significant. And we said, here we go. That's the price. And we went and talked to other people, CDEC. We got a whole coalition of people together. And we called a lot of people, said, hey, you know, what are you doing? What's your annual run rate? Throw it in. There you go. Could we be more efficient about this? Sure. But that then requires better oversight institutions. So your problem is not the vendors. The problem is the oversight institutions, because they don't have enough momentum behind them. They don't have enough skill sets within them. They haven't built products yet. Going back to that, is it Microsoft or is it something else? You know, if Microsoft is a counterparty, I wouldn't mind an RFP process because they would know exactly what they're looking for. They'd understand the customer. They'd understand the product market fit. They already have large networks. They work with partners every single day, thousands of them. And they're really good at engineering software development. So when I call up a Microsoft person, we can talk at any level. And we can talk about any level of depth. And there's a high probability that they invented the thing that I'm working on. So they're the domain expert. When we're talking about these members-based organizations, the majority of the technical talent and scientific talent is outside of the organization. And even when it's within the organization, it's conflicted out. Because then you'll have this situation, well, the TSC that's going to be doing this, well, it's conflict of interest for it to award an RFP to somebody they already work for. So all the engineers, all the scientists, all the people that would be qualified to even have a discussion about the RFP are conflicted out from talking about it for that vendor. So you have non-technical people who've never built a product and have no material connection to the ecosystem being the judge, jury, and executioner over the people bidding. And it just becomes a popularity contest on Twitter. It's so absurd. It's just so absurd. And it just doesn't pass any semblance of common sense or smell test. And we worked really hard to try to get around this. We told the Intersect people again and again and again, there needs to be a transparent process. The DRIPs need to be involved very early. We need coalition style bidding for this year. And there needs to be workshops where we bring people together for both the roadmap post IO and the roadmap and the budget process. And we need to bring professionals in. And they said, no, we're going to keep it opaque. We're not going to publish anything. Even the board of Intersect was having trouble getting any information. And then towards the end of the year, I said, this is absurd. You want a blank check. You just want all the money to go to Intersect. And then you guys have a RFP process. You control it. So I said, let's not do this. Let's bring the DREPs and get all the DREPs together and talk about it for the transition budget. And then the technical steering committee decided to publish its own budget, which is completely disconnected. And then they had a Twitter space saying, I'm the greatest threat to Cardano. Sour grapes. Sour grapes. The greatest threat to Cardano is it took you guys 8 fucking years to figure out a network stack. You still didn't give us pups up. The greatest threat to Cardano is why we had to build DB Sync. The greatest threat to Cardano is technology that's non-standard, that doesn't play nice with anything and makes us an island and makes it really difficult for Cardano to integrate to systems. The greatest threat to Cardano is your absolute unawareness of how competitive the industry has become and how standards are being set right now. And while we have the right idea, we're going to get Betamaxed if we don't move quickly. And you have absolutely no urgency, which is why you want to go to a UK-based RFP process. Tell me, what was the last major fucking tech company to come out of the UK? Where are the Magnificent Seven based? How many people wake up and say, you know, I cannot wait to start a competitive software company in London? It's fucking asinine by people who've never built a business. They have no experience in these types of things. They have no idea how cutthroat the cryptocurrency industry is. And meanwhile, while they bicker, month after month, we fall further behind. Month after month, people who need funding fall behind. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, fuck you if you say I'm bad at business. I don't know what I'm doing. Colossal is valued at $10 billion, just closed a $200 million round. Just brought back the dire wolf. How many people read about that? And I got the plant side of that. I have an anti-aging business that's going to be worth probably $50 billion in the next 10 years. I do stuff. Midnight is going to be in the top 10. Don't fucking look at a self-made billionaire and say he doesn't know what he's doing. Guys, I'm really good at this stuff. And I've been in the industry a really, really long time. I've seen what succeeds, what fails. And I'm trying to tell you, this is what we need to do as an ecosystem. And where exactly we're shutting people out? By saying we should fully fund alternative clients from independent companies, by saying we should fully fund independent institutions like Pragma and give them more independence and more power, by stepping away from governance, by not using my large supply of ADA to vote in the elections. Where exactly am I trying to take over everything and do these things? I'm trying to create a decentralized foundation that is sustainable. And I'm trying to balance it with the fact that this is the bull market, and balance it with the fact that we have only a finite window of time for our standards to set before other people realize we have a good idea and steal what we're doing. You notice Vitalik tweeting about how great UTXO is now. Just the other day, he tweeted about how great privacy is now. I guess he woke up and discovered midnight, but he can't say it. And then they say, oh, we really need a proof of stake protocol that kind of looks like Ouroboros, but they can't say it. And there's dozens of other people that are copying. We invented the AVS stuff. There's us, Shahreem, and a few others with Minotaur. You know what? They went on, created Eigenlayer, went on, created Babylon, went on, create all these different things. If we don't move quickly, even though we created it, somebody else will get the value from it. That's how technology works. And you have to take a moment and say, are we moving fast enough? And do we have the right vision and clarity with these types of things? And what are we trying to accomplish with this type of stuff? And people get so caught up in these small details, and they say, you know what? We just have to go to a zero trust environment. We have to pretend that people have no track record. We have to pretend that people didn't get us here, and everybody's just new. And we have to have absolute faith in new institutions that have never delivered anything of substance to the ecosystem. This is their first time to do something, and they bit the hand that fed. Does that solve anything? Does that get us where we need to go? Absolutely not. And if you doubt me, then why does Pragma exist? Because they didn't want to work with the technical steering committee, and they didn't think they'd get a fair shake. But then they're going to go to them to ask for money? Are you fucking kidding me? It's nuts. It's stupidity at the highest level. And then you have people jump on Twitter and they think they're experts and they know everything. D-Reps, it's your decision. Charles, be honest, what hurts more, Cardano governance or bullet ants? Well, one was predictable. I knew it was going to be this painful with Cardano governance because, there's all this stuff that we know that we've been working on for a long time. And now the ecosystem is starting to learn about it. And they're starting to work their way through it. And we just got to figure it out. And it's very painful because people say things that they can't take back. You know, not everything has happened the way I'd like it to happen. And if I got to do things radically different, many, many different places, we'd work with different people in certain cases. We'd have different technology in certain cases. We would have moved more quickly in other places, hired different people. But overall, I'm pretty proud of the record that we have. What people are saying in Cardano governance is we're evil, we're malicious, we're bad actors, we're dishonest, and it's all about ego. And we're here to rob people and steal from people. In an industry where Luna exists, in an industry where FTX exists, in an industry where we never got caught up in any of these scandals and never got sued, in an industry where we raise 72 million, create a $25 billion ecosystem, leave behind 1.7 billion for that ecosystem to spend as it sees fit. Objectively speaking, it's so far beyond the pale, these types of things. And that hurts. It really does hurt, especially when it's people you consider to be friends or people that you have a relationship with who have been in the room with you. It's one thing if it's a faceless Twitter troll. It's another thing when the person has physically been to my office and we've spent time together. And they just pathologically cannot give you the benefit of the doubt. That hurts. It really does. The Bull and Ant stuff is about growth. It's about overcoming fear. It's about a rite of passage. It's about transitions in life where you become somebody else and you grow. And it gives you confidence that you can achieve great things. Governance, it's a reductive thing. It takes away from you. You lose people along the way. You lose friendships. You make compromises. And that's always tough. That's much harder. It's much, much harder. The Bull and Ants, you gain something. As you go through that transition, you have that event as a milestone in who you are, and you grow from it. So it's a very different situation. Insight to Charles Token, we took terabytes worth of raw footage. I'm having Yuma sit down with the people at Book.io, and they're going to turn over those terabytes of raw footage. And if you're a Charles Token holder, you get the exclusive behind the scenes director's cut. We're not going to post any more of that raw footage on. So the 15-minute video on the Tukandira ritual is just a little taste. Yuma, he took so many things. That guy's a badass too. He retired a command sergeant major in Ranger Battalion, and probably 20, 30 combat deployments. And then he became a photographer and a videographer. I'm like, okay, you're in the George Bush painting pictures part of your career. He's a good guy. Charles being out of shape. I love people see that I'm fat. I'm overweight. But last 6 months, I've gained 12 pounds of muscle. Running around the jungle, climbing mountains. I'm keeping up with special forces guys. I'm carrying a rucksack through the jungle and doing it on a torn tendon in my right foot. And yeah, I'm overweight, but you guys assume I'm out of shape. I'm in pretty good shape, all things considered. Just need to drop the weight. And that's hard to do when you don't sleep right and you're stressed all the time. You have a fucked up diet. And, there's an easy way to do it and there's a hard way to do it. And I haven't really wanted to do it the easy way. Just you take those weekly injections with semaglutide, right? Everybody's doing that. It's super easy to lose the weight. Doing it in a healthy way is a lot harder. And, I had to either mentally prepare for the Tukandera or I had to physically prepare. I didn't have time to do both. I mentally prepared and I was able to go in one of the most painful experiences a human can have and do it with a smile on my face. Very strong willed, very, very strong. And people say, oh, he's overweight, therefore he has no self discipline. Fuck you. Go to hell. Please elaborate on the fairness doctrine being eliminated by Ronald Reagan and the FCC in 1987. So there was this metaphorical idea, and it's built for bipartisan politics. It's not built for real life, that somehow if you present a political view, you have to present the opposing view and give it equal time over public airwaves. This does not work in a multipolar world. This does not work in a world of the internet. This does not work when you have private companies that run media. So if media is not for profit, media are public institutions, and there's only two viewpoints on anything, fairness doctrine makes a lot of sense. If media is private, media is over the internet, and there's dozens of ways to look at something, it's not possible to present all those viewpoints. And you end up getting into these asinine situations. Like, let's say there's some weird cult out there and they're gouging people's eyes out, because they believe that when you get your true sight only by removing your false eyes, and they're doing it to children. If you had a fairness doctrine, you'd have to go and present the side of the cult that's gouging children's eyes out and say, oh, well, let's go talk to them and present them with a Steelman argument, why it's a good idea to gouge children's eyes out for the cult of the sightless eye. It's just absurd. And it was made for a different time when there were 4 channels. They were over public airwaves. The product was being given away for free. And those broadcast companies were almost like government institutions. They were like public-private partnerships. Doesn't work at all on the internet. What needs to happen is you need to have a veracity system, because that's then something you can use to engage with news. So every single time that I see a political meme, every single time that I see a headline, the very first thing I do is I go to GPT and I go to Perplexity and I go to Google Gemini and I go to Claude. I throw these things in and say, fact check this for me. And you know what? They'll come through and they'll tell me a bunch of stuff. And a lot of people immediately go, oh, yeah, they're all social woke. And oh my God. Guys, I have critical thinking skills. I can read the output of the AI. But what it does for me is it gives me at least a basis to ground it of what is the source material. Is this completely made up? Or is this based on an actual event that happened? And if so, who reported on it? When? Where did they report on it? What data is available? All this different stuff. I'm a big boy. I can do that stuff. That is a modern day fairness doctrine. It's a lens of veracity. And then you start going to your second order, third order, fourth order. What would have to be true for the thing that I'm looking at to be true? Pretty simple, right? So if somebody said, like the government is hiding evidence about, raping children in Tennessee. Okay. All right. Some cabal of pedophiles in Tennessee or something like that. Nashville. There you go. All right. Well, what would have to be true for that to be true? Well, that means a group of people in our government, local, state, and federal, are aware of this, and for some reason are either purposely keeping it quiet or blackmailed into keeping it quiet. Why? Then you ask why, and then you just keep going, that second, the third, that fourth order. And then you ask questions. Okay, well, how long has this been going on? 50 years. Okay, they've been keeping this silent for 50 years. A large institution has been able to keep this quiet and private for 50 years. What would have to be true for that? It means that it's multi-generational, okay, because people don't stay in their job for 50 years. So what does it mean? The new guy comes on in, and the old guy's like, oh, by the way, Bill, I got to tell you about something. We're raping a bunch of kids in Nashville, but you got to keep it quiet. Oh, okay, that sounds great. Here's the manual on this whole thing. So that means 100% of the people that were recruited that came in had to have a knowledge transfer about the pedophile cabal in Nashville and learn all that stuff and be and have no problems at all about it, not talk to anybody about it. You see, and so that's your next level. Once you've created a baseline, is you start asking that question and you start thinking in your head, okay, what would have to be true? Is like Epstein is a great example of it, where we all know about it. We all can talk about it. And it's very clear that something occurred there. And it has the telltale signs of a conspiracy against the people. Clearly, an intelligence agency was doing stuff. Clearly, people were blackmailed. Clearly, this is a tactic and technique that's being used again and again. And the reason why we don't know more is people in positions of power today are compromised with that content. And that's why they keep trying to kill the story. And every time we ask questions for basic things like who's on a client list, and it's not a hypothetical. George Bush, under his administration, passed a law that if you're a sex tourist, you go abroad to Thailand and go rape a boy, you could be charged with a sex trafficking crime here in the United States, even though it occurred in Bangkok. Okay, so that very same law could be used on everybody on the Epstein client list, even if they're in international waters or on Epstein's island. And there's no statutes of limitations in many cases for this type of child rape. So why is there not an investigation? Because everybody knew it happened. What happened to tapes? Why is there no special prosecutor looking into it? Because there's probably a pretty high probability that the people currently in power, some of them are connected to it. And they're doing everything in their power just to forget about it and move on. Otherwise, it's free political points. Because the people who are out of power right now, if we investigated it, we could destroy their careers. Pretty simple. Okay, so that's how you do critical thinking. You think about these things, and it takes time and it takes effort. The fairness doctrine doesn't solve that problem at all. What? You're going to outsource all your cognitive load to the same media that has absolutely no intention or interest in the truth? When I was being interviewed by that Reuters person, I said, hey, you want to write a negative story about Donald Trump, about world liberty, and about Trump token. Tell me, in the last 4 years, how many negative stories did you write about Gary Gensler? In the last 4 years, how many times did you come and defend our industry and say what the Biden regime was doing was wrong and it was Kafkaesque? Instead, you supported them. So I'm going to trust those people to accurately and fairly represent the cryptocurrency industry. I'm going to trust those people to write a story that is in our best interest? Absolutely not. You need to build tools of veracity, tools of critical thinking. You need to make truth an economic agent. If we care about it, there's money to be made in revealing the truth. Imagine this, the Epstein client list. If there was $1 billion bounty on revealing the names of those people and why they did it, where they did it, and who's blackmailing them, do you think that we would know? If $1 billion was on the table, we'd know. Somebody would figure it out because that's a lot of money, man. People have murdered for far, far less than that. But there is no veracity market. There's no prediction market for these types of things. And that's why you don't get to the truth. So that's where you get honesty from, is making truth an economic agent. And collectively, we all put money in. I'd put $1 million into that pot. I know a lot of billionaires have put money into that pot to find out who's on the list and what they did and, the extent of the relationships that they have. Because I'm sorry, we have no moral authority as a nation. If the U.S. government is aware of its leaders raping children and just says we just have to move on, the U.S. government has no moral authority. It's gone. It's completely gone. Full stop. It's one of the darkest, most heinous crimes a person can do. And if they have no desire to look into that heinous and dark crime, especially if it was done by a nation state for the purpose of extortion and blackmail, and our foreign policy is being controlled in that way, that's dark. And we should look into that. So I'd put money into that pot, and a lot of people would put money into that pot to reveal this whole thing. So anyway, enough about that. We're going to go down roads that we can't come back from. Oh, this one's very true, too. The trust the science crowd. Journalists usually have very weak science background and just reprint what they're told, not knowing enough to question things like Theranos BS. Absolutely. It's all appeal to authority. That's another problem that I have with the current media landscape. So, like the direwolf thing is a great example of this. I cannot tell you how many stories came through. They said, that didn't actually bring back the direwolf. Some guy somewhere said it's not a direwolf. Yeah. Okay. So how do we know the direwolf exists? How do we know it's not fantasy? How do we know it's a real thing? We found the bones. All right, so you find the bones. You look at the bones. What do the bones tell you? They have morphological characteristics. You look at the bones, they're this way. This is a dire wolf skeleton versus a dog skeleton, a wolf skeleton, gray wolf. Pick something like that. Okay. We have DNA. Do we have complete DNA for the dire wolf? No. We have partial DNA for the dire wolf. Enough to kind of roughly know, but not enough to do a full end-to-end genome sequence like I've done on myself, for example. Okay. So you bring back an animal, and the first question you have is you just take the incomplete DNA, you clone it. Well, if you do, you bring back ancient viruses, and also the imperfections in the DNA sample you have will cause terrible birth defects. It'll be blind and deaf and have all kinds of problems, and it's maladapted to the environment that we live in. Where do you get your adaptations from? Through evolution, okay? Natural selection. So you take a gray wolf, you take the genes of concern that make you look and act like a dire wolf, you move those genes over into a gray wolf's genome, and then when it comes out, the bones are the same. If it dies next to a bunch of dire wolves, and there's 4 dire wolves and one of these weirdo transgenic GMO wolves, you know what? You know what they're going to say as a paleontologist? I found 5 dire wolves. If that wolf wandered off into a dire wolf pack, you know what happened? It would be part of the pack and breed with them. And you wouldn't be able to tell the difference at all. And any variations would be just, they'd assume regional variations inside the genome. So what would you have us do? Bring back blind, deaf, kind of sort of dire wolves based on a clone of an incomplete genome, and also have ancient viruses that are integrated in their genome come out and affect other wolves? Or would you like us to bring something that's modernized and adapted for the environment that we're in? But then the media sees this thing and they say, it's not a dire wolf. Yeah, dire wolf. Yeah. Even though it looks exactly like a dire wolf, it acts exactly like a dire wolf. It has the bone structure of a dire wolf. It has all the genes of concern for a dire wolf. It has the bite strength of a dire wolf. I mean, what the fuck are we doing here, guys? This is just madness. It's almost like people say a synthetic diamond's not a diamond. The diamond industry tried to convince people this because diamonds are pretty common. And what De Beers did is they created artificial scarcity, and they slow drip them out into the marketplace so they have a high price. And then they convince everybody to go and buy diamonds for their wives, you know, for when they get engaged. Okay, then people can make a diamond in a lab. You look at it, a lab-made diamond and a diamond you get from a kimberlite pipe are the same. So what the diamond industry did is they first said cubit zirconia is lab-made diamond, and that's a lie. It's a different stone. Molecularly, it's different. The lab-made diamond is the same as the diamond that you have. In fact, in many cases, they're superior to the diamonds that you find in nature. They have less impurities, and it's easier to control the impurities inside of the structure. And by the way, there's no blood on them, and there's no cartels associated with them, and it's much more sustainable of a business model, and you can make them anywhere. It's a much better stone. And also you can dope them with different materials that change the color, like nitrogen and oxygen and these things, and it makes it yellow and blue and so forth. So it's the same with the dire wolves. And they think, oh, what about conservation? And you say, oh, well, okay, well, think it through. It's global warming, global warming, global warming, global warming, global warming, climate change, climate change, climate change, climate change. Okay, what are the consequences of climate change? Everything's going to go extinct. Okay. So can we stop it? No. Why? Because the world can't work together. Russia can't work with China, can't work with America. So what grand treaty are we going to get? Are we just all going to go live in mud huts and turn off power and reject modernity and return to 1750? It's not going to happen. So we have to accept, because we can't coordinate and because we're not going to reject modernity, that we're going to get climate change. And climate change will do what? It will drive a third or more of all species in the world extinct. So if we can modernize and update their genomes, we can make species adapted to the new environment so they don't go extinct. The Great Barrier Reef, all the corals get bleaching. So if we change it just a little bit, it can adapt to the new ocean temperatures and it doesn't go bleach, and we still keep the Great Barrier Reef. So what do you want to do instead? You just wanted to go bleached and have no Great Barrier Reef, and the great-grandfather can talk to his great-grandson and say, well, when I was a kid, I scuba dived and it was beautiful, and now it's all gone. Is that literally what we want? So this direwolf thing literally solves that problem. by modernizing the genome and then putting the characteristics we want, what you can do is de-extinct species that have gone extinct as a result of the Anthropocene, the actions of man. And then you can adapt to where the world is going, not where it's at today, so that they're always around for the next generation thereafter. And then, the other thing is you can have adult conversations about how do we redo this in a way that fits the environment that we're in. If you're going to have 10 billion people, you have to make some compromises about what the wildlife is going to look like. And that's a governance conversation in the global commons. And if you have a new tool set, it's neutral to that governance conversation. We can make purple wolves, we can make blue wolves, we can make tall wolves, and we can make small wolves. We can do anything you want. You just have to tell us what to do. But then you have these journalists with absolutely no science background or very minimal running around, and their goal is whenever anything is reported that's interesting and fascinating and new, they have to be the devil's advocate. And I guess it's their job to call truth to power and say the thing that we just saw doesn't exist. The thing that we just saw didn't happen, or it didn't happen as good. Imagine how fucked up the life will be. It's like you have this amazing coffee, and they're like that Saturday Night Live character, Debbie Downer, where they're like, well, it's expensive coffee. And it's like, well, I just got an A+ on the test, but you didn't get 100%. I just got into University of Colorado Medical School, but it wasn't Harvard. These people, you encounter them. No matter where you go, what you do, those people are always negative about everything. This is a great human accomplishment. It's the first time in human history that a species that died off about 13,000 years ago, if not longer, has been resurrected. People are holding in their hands that proto-humans held before civilization. And it's here. And now we've unlocked all these magical possibilities about where we can go and what we can do. And it brightens the future because we can talk about all these fantastical and mystical things that are extensions of our personality and our creativity, and things that no longer have as many problems. Like people have designer dogs, they breed dogs. Well, sometimes dogs have hip dysplasia or heart problems or hearing problems or jaw problems because of the way they've been bred. What if you could have a dog that looks that way, but it doesn't have those problems? That's a magical thing, and it's a cool thing. And yeah, it has to be treated with responsibility. So the conversation should be governance. The conversation should be, how do we as a society come together and responsibly use this technology instead of you didn't do it? It's the same in medicine. The consciousness stuff too, Simopinski, or whatever the hell his name is, that professor in Berkeley who shoots monkeys with blow darts. We have no free will. Everything's deterministic. Consciousness only comes from one little structure in the brain. When you die, that's it. What about all this quantum stuff? It's all made up. Doesn't exist. What about like remote viewing and telepathy and all this other stuff that we're starting to discover? No, that exists. The only thing that exists is what I measure in my lab, and everything else is wrong. Rah! Why live in that world? It's so terrible. Live in a world of imagination. And if you don't like it, create it. Go fully within. Sapolsky, yeah, that guy. He was on Rogan, the monkey guy. This is the point. Imagine recreating a diary for people criticizing you about your weight. That's literally it. They're like, yeah, but you're fat and you have no discipline because you're fat. It's like, we have fucking glowing plants, you son of a bitch. Yeah, well, they don't glow the color I like. And it could be brighter. Oh. It's just like Bethesda released the Elder Scrolls 4, and it comes out with Unreal 5, and it's like a major enhancement. They did a really good job. I gotta give them credit on it. And all these people are like, yeah, it's too gray. The original Elder Scrolls were more vibrant. Yeah, I don't like it. It's too gray. Rah. Rah. Imagine being Bethesda. It's like, fuck you guys. All right. Were you playing the 2006 Elder Scrolls? No, I haven't played it in 15 years. Uh-huh. And are you going to play the new one? I will, but it's too gray. Charles, let's brew some beer again. Yeah, it'd be fun, guys. I love lavender, man. Lavender's the shit. Yeah, but is the game fun though? For real, it is, because they just took all the good shit from Skyrim and they took all the good mods for Oblivion and they merged them together. And these retro games make a lot of sense. I'm going to do it with Legends of Valor. You know, we did it with Crystal Mine. We're almost done with Crystal Mine, and we'll have the Nintendo emulator and Lace, and you guys will be able to play Nintendo games. And you know, you'll love Crystal Mine, the remake. It's really cool. Kids today, they just don't know how good the games were in the past. It's like old movies. You can remake them again and again and again. All right. Any thoughts on the Pope's replacement? I don't know, man. The Catholic Church has got some issues, and it's going to have some hard fact finding to work its way through. You got all these people running around that want to go pre-Vatican II. You know, that's old school. Bring back the Latin Mass, and then other people want to go way in the other direction. And I don't know. It's tough. It's too big of an institution. Yeah, the Alien documentary. Heard anything about it? I gotta reach out to Jason and ask him where he's at with it. He's notorious for taking a long time. His last documentary was like 8 years it took him to make it. But I think Netflix is breathing down his throat. So if I had to guess, next year. But I don't have a release date on it. You know, the journals, by the way, wrote that guy who said I didn't participate in the paper, and they're like, "Yeah, he did. Go fuck yourself." Charles, any side effects from getting the COVID vaccine? Yeah, I still have pain in my left arm from the injection site. Now, emulators are not illegal. And I actually understand Nintendo's position here, and I think Nintendo has a very reasonable position. So, an emulator for an off-patent technology, it's no problem. I'll litigate that forever, and their lawyers will lose 10 out of 10 times and pay great legal fees for that. When you take a ROM of pre-existing IP, like Mario, for example, Mario Brothers, these things, you run that out on the emulator, that's protected assets. That's their IP. You can't go and take that and distribute that. That's their property. So there's nothing wrong with the emulator. The problem is the ROMs on top of the emulator. And I agree with Nintendo in that. So my point is that there should be, as a creative medium, more people developing on that platform. And the emulator retroactively resurrects that medium. And so we're creating new intellectual property. So we buy old games or we create original IP and we modernize them, bring them and run them on the emulator and bring it there. And then it creates a homebrew marketplace. If we're not distributing Mario or these types of things, unless we had a partnership with Nintendo. I could be wrong, but weren't you building a restaurant in Wyoming a while back? We're still working on it. We overcame some regulatory hurdles. We ran into a problem with an improper asbestos abatement. We got a stop order for over a year with the state. And then there were some ownership issues. When we purchased the place, apparently the person who sold it to us only owned 70% of it. And there was litigation that was involved. So a lot of the things got jammed up. And then the manager that we had hired to run it got decided to leave, and just all that stuff. You know, it's been one of the hardest projects I've ever worked on. We're building like a 70,000 square foot complex medical facility with radiation shielding the walls and oxygen plumbing and concrete roof and all this stuff. And it's on schedule, on budget. We're going to open July 4th, but the fucking restaurant in Wheatland is the hard thing to do. Ay. Thoughts on Ben Shapiro's sister? The milk truck. Oh, this is Jean-Leo Gérôme's painting. It's about a gladiator. Actually, it's a really fascinating painting because, let me move my head. There we go. So he's looking not to the pulvis, to the emperor, but instead to the crowd for whether he should kill the gladiator. And the emperor is offended by it. You'll notice he's a little perplexed inside the picture because the emperor makes the decision, not the crowd. So he's too big for his britches as a gladiator. There's a lot of subtlety inside that painting. Reading any good books? Yeah, I got Complexity Economics. I'm working on that right now. And that's from Randy Farmer. And then after I finish that, I'm moving over to a book on bioelectricity and time expansion experiences. Thoughts on zero drop shoes? I think I've seen you wearing zero shoes. Yeah, I do wear zero shoes. They're great shoes. So freaking excited for the midnight airdrop! Ah! Yes, I am too. Have you seen Team Topology? Well, I'll read it after I finish my book on topology, Topology for Turtles. Thoughts on printer ink? It's a scam. It's a scam. It's such a scam. Printer ink's a scam. The scammies. I was inspired to try a 3-day fast by your example a while back. I was blown away by the experience and how many bad habits it had an effect on. It's pretty amazing. And also, you notice how much of a social element eating is. Everything we do usually is connected to food in some way. We don't realize it until you stop eating and you're like, damn, it's really hard. That's why it's really hard for me to fast. It's not the willpower just not to eat. It's just, you're just sitting, not eating while you watch other people eat every day. And it's just so hard. Do that. They feel uncomfortable. It's a thing. Cardano had a good shout out on Fox yesterday. Well, Fox likes us. We like Fox. They're good people. Thoughts on paper straws? They have forever chemicals. PFAs and all this other stuff. It's fucking crazy. They got the chemicals. Oh, we're gonna get rid of the microplastics and save the turtles by going to straws that have toxic forever chemicals. Ay. Was a trip to Amazon on your bucket list? Yes. And what's remaining? Many things. Antarctica next. Thoughts on sourdough bread? Finest bread, best bread. Believe me, nobody knows more about bread than me. Sourdough is the shit. I have that book. If you want to read a topology book, Counterexamples in Topology, Team Topology is about project management. Yeah, I assumed it was about, but I have Counterexamples in Topology. It's a Dover book. It's very good. If you want to learn about a mathematical field, the Counterexamples is the way to go. What do you think about carnivore? I'm still not convinced about this whole thing about fiber. How does that work? Do you lose any weight within your 3-day fast? Yeah, you always lose weight. The question is, can you avoid losing muscle? So you have to do what's called a protein sparing modified fast. Brian Johnson is drinking water at restaurants. Brian Johnson also transfuses blood from his children into his body. I once had a call with him where he called himself Lucifer. And Brian Johnson walks around naked all day in his house and has erections in front of his employees. So maybe, just maybe, I'm not going to emulate Brian Johnson on some things. The frustrating part is he's a really nice guy. He's really smart. He's just got a thing, man. He's just doing his thing, and you got to give him kudos for doing his thing. You gotta give him kudos. He's doing the Brian Johnson thing. Charles, do you believe women should be allowed to? What the fuck kind of question is that? Of course, misogynistic son of a bitch. I eat paper for fun and it helps me code. Is this like LSD paper? Is this candy paper? I mean, what type of paper are you talking about there, Lucas? Even paper cups are full of plastic. I know. I love it when they're trying not to fuck you and they fuck you even more. I sleep in a hyperbaric chamber at 2.2 atmospheres for about 16 hours per week. What's your thoughts? Well, the pressure's too high, and how the hell do you have that? That's not a fabric. Are you sure it's not 1.4? You're dealing with a tension fabric instead of a hard shell, because you'd have to go into a steel chamber for that type of atmosphere. It's not safe to operate that by yourself. Thoughts on South Africa's race-based laws in the last 30 years? They're terrible. It's called black empowerment. And they say, oh, you have to have a certain amount of minority ownership and a black CEO and all this other stuff. And you end up creating all these shell companies that are in different jurisdictions. So they have a black CEO, but then there's these Dubai people that own it, or people in Zambia that own it, or something like that. And it hasn't achieved what they want to achieve, which is diversification inside the system. What they should have done is they should have micro-targeted various communities and set up dedicated VC firms, charter schools, and mentorship programs, and just heavily invested in homegrown enterprises there. And then eventually it would have built up an economic class for these things, and then deregulated the marketplace. If they had just simply had a flat tax system and low regulations inside South Africa, it would have been the most investable country in the entire continent. And they would have built basically an African Silicon Valley. Instead, they're like, oh, we'll just have to reallocate stuff. And they've made it functionally impossible for foreign companies to come in effectively into South Africa. So they go to Zambia, or they go to Mauritius, or they just go off continent. They actually incorporate Dubai and then do business through like shell partnerships. And none of it ever goes back to those poor communities. It's very poorly done, those laws. Fiber is indigestible. That's the point. Clean these things out. Got to clean it out like a green beret. Got to come in all silent. Thoughts on free speech in the UK? If you're arresting 1,500 people a year for what they post on Facebook and Twitter, you have no free speech. None at all. It's a nightmare. It's a dystopian hellscape for free speech.
Thoughts on free speech in the UK? If you're arresting 1,500 people a year for what they post on Facebook and Twitter, you have no free speech. None at all. It's a nightmare. It's a dystopian hellscape for free speech.
Have you tried Mr. Beef's chocolate? Mr. Beef's chocolate is made with extra notoriety. No. Did you watch the new season of Black Mirror yet? It looks fucking awesome, man. What do you think of the Blade Runner sequel? I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Why did the milk delivery in glass bottles stop? Because people got tired of the milkman sleeping with their wives. Does your clinic have a pulmonologist? I've had pneumonia 3-4 years ago. I have scar tissue in the lungs, many problems finding help. Yeah, we actually have one that we're recruiting right now, and I want to do clinical trials using mesenchymal stem cells to regenerate lung tissue for COPD and scarring. So that'd be really good. I have a little bit of scar tissue in my left lung, and I'd love to see if we can finally clear that up. But we will definitely have that. It takes about 6 months to 12 months to recruit one. Does the bull and ant ceremony normally last 10 minutes, or is that easy mode? 10 minutes is sufficient because the ants run out of poison at some point. You've been stung hundreds of times and your hands are doing this and you're like, oh, I feel great. And then 30 minutes to an hour later, it starts traveling through and it's that wow pain. And every time it goes, wow, oh, I'm on fire. Oh, I'm on fire. Oh, I'm on fire. That's what we do. Charles, why do boomers think Israel's our greatest ally? I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, it's a country like any other country. It's got its own geopolitical interests, does its own stuff. There's a good side, there's a bad side. I've been to Israel, a lot of Israeli friends in the IDF, but by no means is it America. They have their own interests, and sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not the same. Countries don't have allies. They have mutual interests. And when you look at the world this way, it works a lot better. There's certainly a lot of good that Israel does, and it's a startup nation, and there's some bad stuff that they do that's just strange. And what bothers me sometimes, the fundamental lack of accountability. Not every person they kill is an evil terrorist. They make mistakes, just like we make mistakes. In Afghanistan, when the drones blew up all those kids as we were withdrawing, that was a mistake. This ambulance thing was a horrific mistake. And you should be able, in the same breath, to hold people accountable, especially friends accountable, and hold them to a higher standard. I think the issue Israel has is just fatigue. They've been fighting for so very long, and it's intergenerational fighting that people are just getting numb to the conflict the way that it is. And it's a tough situation all around for everybody. And the thing that bothers me is why America has to get involved in these things. It's not our fight. It really isn't. It doesn't geopolitically give us much. And there's certainly things we could discuss that I think could radically improve the situation. I think the Palestinian thing probably could be solved if people were willing to zoom out a little bit and look at decades instead of the now. And the Israelis, they have something called Leviathan. It's a gigantic natural gas field that's off their coast in the Mediterranean. It's several trillion cubic meters of natural gas. What they probably should do is make a deal with all the nations to build a pipeline from Israel to Europe, displacing the Russian pipeline, and Israel could become the largest supplier of natural gas to Europe. And that'll lock in for 100 years worth of sales. And what they could do is take 5-10% of that and basically set it aside into a sovereign wealth fund for the Palestinians. Go to the Egyptians who are building a new city. It's called New Cairo. And they're building it because they don't want another Mubarak situation. Mubarak got overthrown because Cairo is so bad in infrastructure, it's hard for the government to protect itself when there's a mass insurgency. So they're building a parallel city that's outside of Cairo to put all their military and government stuff in, but they don't have enough money to build it. They're bankrupt. So you go make a deal with the Egyptians to go buy something on the Red Sea that's 2-3 times the size of Gaza. You just give that to the Palestinians. You set them up with a sovereign wealth fund with the natural gas. And so they have an incentive to work with the Israelis. And then you go to all these nations that support the Palestinians, like Emirates and Saudi Arabia and so forth, and say, okay, time for you guys to go build a Dubai for the Palestinians, and you go and build it there. And then you give them freedom of movement throughout Israel. So probably, a dual passport type of situation. And then through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, everybody has economic incentives to work with each other. And then all that area in Gaza, just absorb it into Israel. And then if they want it, they can buy it back with their billions and billions of dollars that they have. You alleviate the poverty, you alleviate the space conflict, and you create a situation where people have an area to grow into and thrive in autonomy. The new Palestinian state can have its own army. It can act like a nation state. They actually have diplomatic ability. They can navigate. You've solved a major problem for Egypt, and they look like the heroes in the whole thing. And then you create a strong economic tie, because you can tie in the natural gas pipeline from Israel with Saudi Arabia, and they can move oil into Europe as well. So the Israelis absorb into the Arab states, and they're all working together, and it becomes a South versus North situation instead of an Israel versus the rest. Is it perfect? No. But the problem with war is the stronger party wins, as the Native Americans in the United States learned, and all these other people learned. And you can complain about it, but that's how human history has worked for a really, really long period of time. And if there's irreconcilable differences where the Palestinians are basically saying, we want the land back, and the Israelis are saying it's our land, well, whoever has the biggest army is going to win that. So they've litigated it through warfare since the 40s, and a lot of people have died, and the conflict continues, and it's going to continue indefinitely. Or you move people. And then you have to ask, how do you do that in a way that it works for everybody? You get more land in the process. You get a sovereign wealth fund in the process. You solve the poverty issues in the process. You get legal autonomy and diplomatic autonomy, and you get your own army and your own nation state, your own passport that means something in the process. And you have freedom of movement in all the old places. In 1 or 2 generations, it's all resolved. And a lot of those old places, the families will buy their stuff back with all the money. And then they're all living and trading with each other, and they don't have problems. Is it perfect? No. Will the group of people right now be happy about it? Probably not. But the vast majority of the young people will understand it, and they'll accept it. If I was president, that would be the deal that I would put on the table. And if they say, no, we're not going to take the deal, well, then what I would do is just leave completely, pull out all U.S. interest, and say, we're just going to stay neutral in the whole thing. And best of luck with it. And just let it work its way out then. You have the Eritreans and the Ethiopians. You have Western China, the Tibet situation. You have all the stuff going on in Eastern Europe. If you're looking for a fight, you can find a fight. If you're looking for ethnic conflict, you can find ethnic conflict. If you're looking for injustices in the world, you can find injustices in the world. And if America's foreign policy is every single injustice in the world, every single conflict in the world, we're going to get involved in, we're going to pick a side, and we're going to be the moral authority. Well, what happens when the side you pick starts doing abhorrent things? Then you just turn a blind eye to it? Or then you have to go and overthrow that side and put another group of people in and nothing. Look at Libya with Muammar Gaddafi. Wasn't exactly the nice guy, but there was stability there. And then he's gone, and it's just years and years and years of chaos. Or Iraq, where Saddam Hussein, he's gone. There's years and years and years of chaos, and Sadr City and sectarian violence, and ISIS comes in, and these types of things. Now everybody wants to go to war with Iran. You replace the Ayatollah. Who are you going to replace him with? Another Shah? What if the democratically elected government elects a fundamentalist regime? That's what happened in Gaza, where they elected Hamas. What do you do with that? Well, we didn't like the people who are elected, so we're going to go to war with them again. If you're going to pick a fight, you put a solution on the table. And you see if people take it. And if they take it, then you in earnest work towards it. If they say no, you say, well, that was our help. And then you move on. And you move on. You just do other things. And you focus on the small wins. The Dead Sea, every year, it's losing a few feet. It's shrinking. So you talk to an older Israeli, you go out to the Dead Sea, and they'll point out that when they were kids, they would swim in an area that's now all dry. They can solve this problem. They build a pipeline with Jordan. Jordan and Israel, they just can't come to terms on it. They can't get it done. It's super easy to do. You just go to all the Jewish billionaires and Wall Street and Silicon Valley. You say, come on, guys, the Dead Sea, each one of you chip in 100 million. And the U.S. government puts some money in, the Israelis put some money in, the Jordanians put a token amount in, and then they just work on it diplomatically. And then boom, 10 years is a mega infrastructure project, joint project in Jordan and Israel. They work together. The Dead Sea is restored. It's a wonder for both of them. It's tourism for both of them. These are small things, but they're big things, when you work together. That's why the Abraham Accord was such a big deal. I went to Dubai, and I saw Sheikh Mohammed walk across all these flags in Dubai, and one of them was an Israeli flag. Israelis couldn't travel there 10 years ago, and they just walked by that flag. That's massive progress for people to actually talk to each other and trade with each other and build relationships together. So you got to think about the economics of uniting people together. And if it's a land issue and both sides are not willing to budge, you got to pick a winner. It doesn't mean you have to burn the other group of people down. You just have to figure something out. And there's plenty of ways where you can figure something out, which it's not good in the short term, but in the long term, the children love it. It is what it is. And if you're not prepared to entertain that, then what you're basically saying is, well, we're just okay with the conflict, and we're just okay with decades and decades and decades of fighting. You can't have two families in the same home. It just doesn't work. One family is going to kick the other family out. And so you build another house somewhere else to solve that problem. That's my thought process from this. And that's for a very American view and from our own lived history in the United States of America. And we ran into this with like the Black Hills, for example. And technically speaking, the land claims and treaties are very clear. It should be returned to the tribes that were kicked out. But the Supreme Court decided not to do that, but rather remunerate them for the land that was taken. Was it the right decision? Well, can we have 45 countries in North America? The United States decided not to do that. It's the same for Hawaii. I was born in Hawaii. The Kingdom of Hawaii was overthrown by pineapple merchants, and they created the Republic of Hawaii, the Dole Plantation, these things. And then they, in a very corrupt way, worked with President Harrelson and sold it to the United States, and they couldn't reverse it. And then, it was terrible for the Native Hawaiians. It was a bad deal. They had their land stolen from them. It's Hawaii. I wouldn't have been born there had that not gone down. No one is alive today that lived through that, but their descendants are. And it's not a question of can we litigate the past? It's a question of what do you do for the future? And how do you right that wrong inside the future? That's what I think about it. And it's such a toxic subject to talk about. It's so much sensitivity, you can't have an adult conversation about it. Because whatever you say, it's like they instantly go back to the wrongs here. And they say, nothing of our plight, nothing of these things. And, you don't understand. It's like, no, you're not the first diaspora that's been kicked out. And you won't be the last. That's human nature. They fight over stuff. And throughout the totality of all human history, there's been a conqueror that's come and taken something. I was just in the Amazon, and there were 30 million Native Americans that lived in Brazil, in the Amazon, before the conquistadors came. And when they came, the majority of them died of disease. They contact the tribes, and they had no resistance to smallpox and other things, and it came through. It was one of the worst Holocausts in history. And then the rest of them, they got gradually absorbed, and their ways of life were destroyed. And the only reason why a lot of the tribes survived in the Amazon, it was just physically too difficult, and there was no economic reason to go into the Amazon. But everybody on the coastlines were completely wiped out. And that's not a story that's unique to Brazil. It's the same in Mexico with the Aztecs. It's the same all throughout North America. It's the legacy of America. It's the legacy of the world. It's how people have done things. And I wish it was different, but that's the human race. And today in 2025, we pretend to be very civil, but then we turn a blind eye to everything. And if you don't believe me, tell me what's made in this microphone, all the components of it. And can you with a straight face tell me that every single component in this microphone was ethically sourced and the people behind it knew 100% that all the people that were connected to the manufacturing of this were treated fairly? And you can't honestly answer yes to that. And you're listening to me right now. There's 14,000 people listening live, and you're watching me on a monitor, and you're hearing my voice being transmitted from a microphone and you see me from my webcam. Did a single one of you, until we started talking about this, think in your head, boy, I wonder if everything was legit and everything was on the up and up from this whole setup and everybody was treated fairly? Not a single child was involved in the labor, and all of that was done properly. Did it even cross your mind? Did you even think about it? No, you didn't. So we love to take the moral high road, and then we enjoy the conveniences of not doing so. The key is, year by year, you do better, and you do a little less evil. And acceptance is that sometimes entire generations of people have to sacrifice for the future. It's the immigrant story in America. When the Italians came over, my Italian ancestors, and the Norwegians came over, my Norwegian ancestors. Many of you are Irish listening, and they came over. They lived horrible existences that were super fucking tough. They'd sleep in small homes, 8, 10 families in a very dense place, being exploited by their bosses. And they say, you know what? My children are going to live well. And a lot of their children and their children's children, they live well. My great-grandfather was one of the poorest people on the planet when he came with a bag full of stuff. His entire life was in a single bag when he came into New York, Ellis Island. I'm a billionaire. Do you think he could have imagined that? I'd have more money than the Medici? Of course not. But his sacrifices, that chain of transitive sacrifices, led to this. That's what you do. That's how you get ahead. You have to think intergenerational, and you build up wealth over time, and you gradually right wrongs over time. And we as a race, humans, we have to think this way. We have to think about the great project, better governance systems, more sustainable environmental policy, better technology towards growing people, more equitable distribution of resources, expanding the pie in resources. We have infinite land. It's called space. Why are we not spending 2-3% of the global GDP on exploiting that? Space mining, space colonies, these types of things. So everybody has something. You have infinite land if you want it. Why aren't we colonizing the seas and doing that in a responsible and economically sustainable way? That's what the Dutch did. They didn't want war, so they just took a third of their country is reclaimed from the oceans. Why don't we go do that? They could have a mega project where they just expand into the Mediterranean Sea with Israel. Hasn't anybody proposed that? Go reclaim 2-3 times the territory and go build a Palestinian state as an island, or a peninsula, off into the ocean. There you go. There's enough natural gas to pay for it. That's how you get out of these things. You have to have vision and push forward. But a lot of people don't want to do that. Yeah, those Italians and Norwegians literally plundered land that wasn't theirs. Yeah, absolutely. It's called the Roman Empire and the Viking raiders that came before them. And by the way, those Italians were plundered themselves. You look far enough back, whatever piece of land, somebody else came there and killed somebody for that land. Always the case. And I love these racist statements too that are completely bereft of history. Africans learned about the wheel from whites and now they use tires filled with, fuck yourself. So many amazing things came out of Africa. So many empires were there. Africa is the continent that the pyramids were built on. Africa is the continent of the Milanese Empire. There's all this amazing stuff that happened, 10,000 plus years of history there. And people had to survive some of the harshest terrains, and they had to deal with malaria, and they had to deal with all kinds of stuff. And the Europeans, the innovation of the Europeans is they invented governance organizations that were intrinsically superior to the governance organizations of the past. And the first person to invent new technology tends to conquer the world. The Mongolians had a better form of warfare. They conquered a third of the planet. They swept all the way throughout Asia. They're small Mongolia, China big. Mongolia conquered China. Think about that. This gargantuan, multi-thousand-year-old empire with writing and gunpowder and culture and years and years and years of emperors and these things get conquered by horse nomads because they had better technology. They invented a MacGuffin. And the Europeans, they invented organized religion. They invented much better governance systems. And because they could coordinate at a larger scale, they ran the show and they conquered a whole bunch of stuff. It just as well could have come out of Africa. And there were plenty of times where Africa could have almost conquered everything. If you don't believe me, look at the Bronze Age. At that time, it was all centered around North Africa and Mesopotamia. So there's the Hittites that were up in modern day Turkey, and they were always fighting with the Egyptians, fighting with each other, going at it. And one of the pharaohs died, and his wife knew that the pharaoh's son was planning to kill her and take over Egypt. So she reached out to the Hittites and said, let's have a political alliance. And she said, what if we marry, and then the Hittite Empire and the Egyptian Empire can come together? And the Hittite king said, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. If we do that, no one can stop us. So he sent his son down, and unfortunately his son died in transit. And everybody took it as a bad omen and created a conflict between Egypt and the Hittites, and it led to the decline of the Hittite Empire. Now let's say the ship arrived and the marriage actually happened. Egypt and the Hittites together. They would have conquered all of Mesopotamia. Okay, so they'd have Babylon, Samaria, all this stuff. Then they would have gone to Minoans, which were the Proto-Greeks, and conquered the Greeks. Then they would have gone westward and conquered all the barbarian tribes in Italy and Spain and spilled throughout all of Europe. Now, the Egyptians and the Hittites were technologically super advanced, relatively speaking. It took over 1,000 years to match them. They had advanced warfare. They had iron, they had coinage, wheels, proto-batteries, advanced construction techniques. My God, they built the fucking pyramids. Okay, these guys were ballers. Now, could you imagine a unified empire spilling all the way through? All of Europe would have been brown. And they would be 1,000 years ahead of where we're at right now. One shipwreck did all of that. And you go and say, oh, Western culture is so superior and all these other things. Everything always rests on a small thing. Always rests on one decision. Always rests on one guy doing it or one gal doing something. You don't believe me? Ask about Annie Oakley. So Buffalo Bill had a circus here in the United States of America. It was wildly popular. He'd go all around. And he had this one sharpshooter, a woman named Annie Oakley. And she had this very dangerous stunt where she would take a volunteer in the audience, and the volunteer would come over and put a cigar in his mouth, and she'd walk away about 50 feet, pull out a revolver, and shoot the cigar out of his mouth. So she went to Europe, and they toured all the way through Europe. And in the 1880s, they went to Germany, to Berlin, and a very young Kaiser Wilhelm II came out and was the volunteer for her stunt. So the Kaiser put a cigar in his mouth, and she aimed and shot it out. Now, if she had missed and killed the Kaiser, here's what would have happened. The Bismarck arm of the Germans would have taken over. There would have been probably no World War I, or it would have happened in a very different way than the World War I that we know. The Tsar would have not gotten involved. So the Soviet Union would have never come to fruition because the Germans wouldn't have lost the war the way they lost. The Nazis would have never come into power. So no World War I, no World War II, no Soviet Union, and All of Europe is completely different, probably still monarchies because of one bullet from one woman. And if you move a little bit to the right, no Hitler, a little bit to the left, World War II. That's history. Single bullet. Right there. Single Hittite ship arriving. No Roman Empire, no Greek Empire, no Zeus, none of these gods. They're all not there. Completely different culture, different languages. You'd all be speaking Hittite right now. It's like a Proto-Turkish. That's the world. And then people, they invent these fantasies. And they say, oh, no, there's this intrinsically superior culture, an intrinsically superior way of doing it. There are techniques and methods that if people adopt those techniques and methods, then they can do better things. So if an African country modernizes and adopts all this stuff, in 50 years, that country is going to be elite. It's just that simple. If they adopt blockchain technology and they start thinking about complex adaptive systems and they put AI and better procurement and all their things, better education systems, all this stuff, we've run that experiment. Look at Singapore and look at Hong Kong. Look at what Hong Kong looked like in 1800. And look at what Hong Kong looks like today. Look at what Singapore looked like. And look at what Singapore looks like today. And compare that to people with terrible governance systems in Malaysia, or terrible governance systems in Vietnam or other places, like some of the poor areas that they have that are endemic with corruption and bureaucracy. Relatively the same culture, the same languages. Look at South Korea and North Korea. They're the same fucking people, artificially divided. Same race, same language. If you unified them today, they're Koreans. And look at the GDP of North Korea versus South Korea. We run these experiments. It's about the systems that people have. And there's no concept of, well, this culture is intrinsically inferior. It's more of a question of, are they willing and able to adapt? And yeah, they want to stay in a certain level of technology, like the Amazon, for example. I just got done going through the whole Amazon River Basin. I was at the Rio Negro, and it's a very dark river, and you can't see any of the fish, and it's extremely fucking dangerous because you can't see anything. It's filled with piranhas and pickeroo and anaconda and caimans and other things like that. And I'm hanging out with these people that have Stone Age technology, and they survive and thrive in that environment. You go take somebody with a PhD in physics from an elite university, you throw them in that environment, they will be dead in a week. You think all of that advanced knowledge that they have means a damn thing to that environment. And we say, well, progress would be wiping out the entire jungle, building condominiums, and then getting these people to go and live in this way. Oh, okay. And are they happy? How many antidepressants are we taking right now? How many of you are in debt listening to this thing? How many of you work 9-to-5 jobs and you feel like you're basically wage slaves in modern society? You're little worker ants for these things. Meanwhile, you go and talk to the people that live in the Amazon River. It's like, what's your life like? Well, I just woke up today and I said, I want to spearfish tonight. That's what I want to do. I want to go spearfish. I'm kind of hungry. I need to get something to eat. What else are you going to do? I haven't thought about it yet. Do you have a tax bill coming? No, I don't pay taxes. Do you have child support payments? No. Pretty tight with all the things, But what if you get sick? Oh, go out in the jungle and get some of the local medicine. That treats yellow fever, and that treats parasites, and that treats malaria, and that treats cancer over there. Yeah, but what do you have to pay for that? Pay? I know. I go out in the jungle and shave it off the tree. Drink the tea. Is it? But you don't have an internet, or you don't have all these modern devices. These things. Yeah. But you need these things to be happy. Well, I'm happy right now. Life is good. Joy in my face. Every day is awesome. This is the craziness of all of it. Does it really matter if you live one way or another way? What matters is, are you happy? And do you love your life? What matters is, do you enjoy the day by day? Do you like what you do? How many of you listening, wake up, you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love my life. I love the people in it. I love what I do. I actually am interested. I get to do the things I want to do. And how many of you waking up say, I am chained down by some obligation, by kids, by money, by my job, by my lot in life, my health conditions, whatever the hell it is. I'm chained down by these things. I can't do the things I want to do. So let me get this straight. You're going to suffer for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, suffer terribly, so that maybe you have a window of time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, to do the things you want to do. And you're going to do them on bad knees. You're going to do them with bad hearing. You're going to do them with bad eyesight. You're going to do them with shaky hands in your 60s and 70s and the 80s. And it's going to be so enjoyable going to Machu Picchu and being out of breath at 70 years old with all that bad stuff. You sacrificed so that you could go and see that thing, which, by the way, was built by the same people that go down the river. Or you can just live well every day. And you wake up every day and it's joyous every single day. And then you have these people judge those people and say they're primitives. They're bad people. They live a bad life. All these things. My God, how fucking naive are you? The greatest con job of modernity has been convincing the majority of human beings to basically enslave themselves so that a small group of people can be very powerful and very rich, and have those group of people who've been enslaved be absolutely convinced that they're not enslaved. That's the greatest con job ever done. And we do it through monetary policy. We do it through the institutions. We do it through the education system. We do it through organized religion. We as human beings have become very adept at this type of stuff. And then any tribe or group that has found independence of that, we try to diminish them. They're primitive. They're eccentric. They're occult. They're misinformed. They're not really happy. You know, we have to enlighten them. We have to enculturate them. We have to do these types of things. And what's it for? So that some group of people that you've never met can preserve their power. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you're reading these comments right now, I bet you're thinking there is no hope. It makes me think I wish I had a better mechanism to solicit comments. You know, the internet's the internet. It's the it of humanity. And they're like kids. Why would you complain about kids babbling? You can't, you know. There's no accountability behind what people say. And they wouldn't say it to your face. So many of these things they wouldn't say to your face. And they have permission to basically just be bad actors. Hello, my Polynesian brother. Didn't know you were born in Hawaii. Mahalo, brother. Yeah, I was born on Maui in Wailuku. I love the Polynesian war culture. It's great. They're strong people, man. When I was growing up, I watched sumo, and we had Akibono Taro. This big guy, and 6'8", 400 pounds, and dominate. But I love tough people. I love people that go and say, "Hey, stand up for yourself." There's a confidence that you get by becoming dangerous. When people train, and they say, I could mess that guy up, and they know that. You just see it in the way they walk, the way that they act. And actually, paradoxically, it results in less violence because people say, oh, that's a tough person. I shouldn't fight that person. So people talk to each other and they actually negotiate instead of fighting. The best thing you do for kids is teach them jujitsu and teach them how to be self-reliant and self-defense. And that's one thing I really like about those Polynesian cultures. They just don't take shit from people ever. But they're some of the nicest people. I was just in Maui, and I was up in the nearby Lahaina. I had dinner with one of the Hawaiians up there, who's a friend of the family. He's a tough guy, really, really tough guy. See, I got the Polynesian body. Do your hands still hurt from the bullet ant ceremony? No, it was about 48 hours. It was completely gone, mostly gone the day after. It just had kind of like that arthritis style pain. I love this Bitcoin Maxi idiot. How much did you pre-sale in Japan? Oh, it's a scam. It's a scam. Okay, so thought experiment about Bitcoin. 100 years from now, everybody who owns Bitcoin who started mined it's dead or in diapers. They're gone. So every single person holding Bitcoin got it from somebody else who sold it to them or gave it to them. Can you distinguish then a cryptocurrency that did a pre-sale versus did a distribution through a mine 100 years from now? Can you distinguish it? The emissions rate of mining in Bitcoin at that point will be de minimis, so it'll just be transaction fees. Can you distinguish? You can't. But in your world, never legitimate, ever. Even though it's all public, it's an 80-20 split. 80% sold, 20% was distributed through the pre-mine. It's all public. Everybody saw it. And it's scattered out and become far more distributed. And Gini coefficient looks better on Cardano than it does Bitcoin. And there's actually more smallholders on Cardano than there is with Bitcoin. And the majority of Bitcoin is being hoovered up by large institutions like BlackRock, for example, and these other people. But in your world, because there's a pre-mine, it's forever stained. All right. What about Satoshi's distribution? Well, that doesn't count because he mined it. Yeah, but he mined it when no one was around. So it's him and like 3 guys. Yeah, but he invented the technology. So he should get, like first access to that stuff. How come we didn't do a redistribution? How come we didn't reset the Bitcoin network after a year once they had a lot of people say, well, it wasn't fair that I got the majority of the supply in the first year. I should give it to somebody else. Just never be convinced. Never be convinced. Because you guys are brainwashed. It's a cult. And you just believe whatever you want to believe. It's a money system. Everything you own will eventually go to somebody else. This land that I'm on was settled in 1877, this particular piece of land. Is there anybody live right now from 1877? And they took it from the Native Americans. And they took it from a different Native American tribe. And they took it from a different Native American tribe. So I am in a long line of former owners, and I have it for the period I'm here. And at some point when I'm dead, somebody will come after me. So did they earn it? What if they inherited it? What if they bought it? Well, they bought it. They didn't mine it. They didn't build it themselves. So it doesn't count because they didn't build it themselves. Ay, 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 ay. Hi from the Viking lands. Cardano for a win. Hello, fellow Viking. Did the Haleakala sunrise. It was amazing. I love Haleakala. Ugh. Do you think that Midnight could cannibalize Cardano if it shared the top 10 with it? No, because the vast majority of value from Midnight is going to come from servicing other networks. It's bringing transaction volume into Cardano from Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and other places. That would not normally be in Cardano. They'd be self-service, but it's adding a new capability. You forgot to mention you're a self-made billionaire, you narcissist. I'm proud of something I've achieved and accomplished that's relevant when we talk about business. Yeah. It's like you talk about medicine. You're like, well, I'm a doctor. Let's talk about medicine. It gives you a little credibility in the conversation about medicine. You talk about business, being a self-made billionaire, gives you a little bit of credibility when you talk about business strategy. You fucking idiot. Ay, 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 ay. Don't compare yourself to legit endeavors. You should be investigated. You're a bad guy. This is the world we live in. Because you get to decide. You get to decide what's real, what's not real. You get to decide what on CoinMarketCap is meaningful, what's legit cryptocurrency, what's not legit. Every metric you look at, EDI for decentralization, we look good. Code, diversity, all decentralized governance, all this stuff. Everything we said we were going to do, we did. We grew organically. But no, you get to decide what's legit, what's not legit. And they never tell me the scam, too. You're a scam artist. What's the scam? What is the scam? Objectively speaking, what's the scam? You got the whole audience here. 15,000 people are listening right now, big arms. Right now, they're listening to you. They're there. You got the audience. You misled people every step of the way. Give me a specific thing. Did we not do Byron? We did Byron. Did we not do Shelley? We did Shelley. Did we not do Gauguin? We did Gauguin. Did we not do Voltaire? We did Voltaire. Are we not currently finishing up Basho? We finished up Basho. We got a plan for that. We're doing it. So where's the scam? Where's the scam? Is it not decentralized? Is there not DREPs? Do we not have the hard fork combinator? Have we not been running for over 2,200 days, nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Not process billions and billions of transactions and hundreds of billions of dollars of value flow inside the system? That not happen? People could not build dApps on Cardano. Does Iagon not exist? Does World Mobile not exist? Does Sunday Swap not exist? Does MinSwap not exist? Does Hosky not exist? Does SNEC not exist? What's the scam? Come on. Where is it? What is the scam? Where is it at? All the people that put the money down to make it happen, they're happy. Launch, it's liquid. It's on hundreds of exchanges. It's been the top 10 for all these years. So what is the scam? You got us all here, big arms. You're here. You own this audience. Tell us what the scam is. What is it? Adoption in Africa. So we're not in Kenya. There's not Cardano representation in Nigeria. Cardano representation. What about all the African delegates that came to the Constitutional Convention? We had a whole parallel convention in Kenya. They don't exist, says you? We've been trying for years to do these types of things. Huge Cardano community in Nigeria. Huge community in Kenya. Even in Ethiopia, where they hate crypto. Huge community there. Oh my God, there's a scam. They're not in Africa. We're Africa. What's John O'Connor doing? What's RealFi doing? What's World Mobile doing? What are these people doing? The D-reps who are African, they don't exist, so saith you. They're not human beings, so saith you. They're not representing their community. Mercy, she doesn't exist. Oh, she's inconvenient. Your army. Okay, keep them coming. Keep them coming. Keep them coming, big arms. Let's go. It's a bereft of accountability. People just say these things again and again. You're a scam. You've done this. You've done this. Business is hard, you motherfucking idiot. It's changes. Things occur. Macroeconomics. We lived through COVID. We lived through multiple administrations. We lived through Biden literally trying to kill the entire cryptocurrency industry. He sued every exchange. He said everything but Bitcoin's a security, but don't worry, we'll get to that too through environmentalist policy. Debanked everybody. And for 4 fucking years, we lived through that. We lived through wars. Imagine going to Ethiopia where you have a signed deal from the Ministry of Education and you're working your ass off to try to deliver the deal. They say, we need to re-sign the deal because there's a new minister. And the TPLF is 100 miles away from the capital where they're actively talking about conscripting people to fight in an urban war at Addis Ababa, and you fly into the country just to re-sign the fucking deal and they still don't pay you. That's how fucking motivated you are. And then you have this piece of shit say, you're a scam. Listen to excuses. There aren't any excuses. We're here. We exist. We have a community. There's 16,000 people listening. Where's your live stream with your 16,000 people listening? Oh, that's right. You don't have one. You crept into mine to go ahead and try to co-opt it, to tell everybody in the whole world how small you are because you've achieved nothing. And when you die, you'll achieve nothing and no one will remember your name. Big arms, small dick. Ugh. Exactly. Biden made running a pool in the United States illegal, and that law was just removed. My Lord. How's Nike? He's doing good. He's a good pig. He can run around doing Nike stuff. Can you eat bullet ants? Yes, you can, sir. In fact, I think I have a picture of me eating the bullet ants. Let me show you my bullet ant eating picture. Damn, this chest cold just will not go away. Ay. I got sick in Paris and then moved into my lungs. And it's just op tempo. It's just too high. That's okay, you know. You just gotta push. You just gotta keep the grind going. But it does get tiring over time, you know. You know, I've been sick every 3 to 6 months after getting the COVID vaccine. I never used to get sick. And now I get sick. But trust the science, right? It's just a coincidence. Help, I'm dying of a coincidence. Let's see here if I can find it then in the signal channel. Let's see, Amazonas. Oh, those night vision goggles were awesome, dude. The night ops. But I think I got the eating of the ants Yeah, Rob's got him here. Let's see here, Rob Mitchell. Where's my bowl? I'll find it for you guys. It's pretty cool. Those are all the shoes being. Oof. Yeah, that's when the tarantulas started coming out of the tree. Look at that one. You jumped into the boat. We were like, oh, well, you know, it's what it is. Where's my ant bowl? Ant bowl. Ah, here's another one. Yeah, we'll find it here. And that's my howl. No, that's not it. Ah, is that the ant bowl? Oh, that's the ant bowl right there. They got their little antenna stuck in my gums too. Well, this is what they look like when they're woven into the glove. I actually have one of the gloves now. And a bow. Chunky monkey. See the stinger still inside the hand. Just stuck there because they just kept biting and biting and biting. I cannot find that. Oh well. It is what it is. He's so brilliant that he took the poison RNA vaccine. Come from a family of doctors. We've been pro vaccines our entire life. We had a certain level of understanding and belief in how the FDA worked, and we were betrayed. And it hurt. For the rest of my life, I'm going to remember that. People can make mistakes, and people could be misled by people that they trust. And it was very eye-opening to see how fucked up it was. And the thing is that, you know, I was basically told you couldn't travel. So I run a business, go to dozens of countries every year, can't even go into the supermarket some places without showing your vaccine card. And talk to all the doctors, all our medical professionals. They say, oh, you know, here's all the science, here's how it works. And I said, oh, okay, makes sense. Yeah, passes the smell test. Went and did it. And there we go. And then these people come in retroactively and, oh, yeah, you were such an idiot. And I get a do-over. I wouldn't get vaxxed. Is what it is. It's one of the reasons I built my clinic, because I just can't trust modern medicine anymore. And we're just going to do it our own way. It's like, well, look for my own science and we'll find my own facts by hiring MD PhDs and doing my own research. Aha! Glitch of the matrix, motherfucker. We're going to do science. You know, it'll be good science too. And you know what? There's no NIH involved. You're going to try the Oblivion remake? You damn fucking know I'm going to try that Oblivion remake. Fucking going to happen. Why don't you move to Europe? Oh, God, no. Oh, no. No, I like free speech. I like freedom of association. You know, I enjoy being master of my own domain. And Big Arms is gone. Boom, boom. He's been removed. you have 100% less free speech in US than Europe. Ridiculous thing to say. Patrick, you're not going to win this one. They literally arrest people in Europe for saying things like hate speech or whatever the fuck they call it. They arrest you for your opinion. They deplatform people. And if social media companies do not participate in the deplatforming of people, they get massive fines. That by definition is not free speech. You may disagree with things I say, but I have the constitutional right to say them. In Europe, I do not have that constitutional right. They literally say if your speech is inconvenient to the power structures of Europe, it is hate speech, and then you get thrown into prison. 1,500 people are arrested in the UK every year for things they say on Twitter and Facebook. 0 people are arrested in the United States for that. And give me an example in the United States where we don't have freedom of speech. It's deplatforming by private companies, but give an example of a single person arrested in the United States because of something they said over Twitter that didn't involve threatening the life of the president of the United States, or a few very protected areas where we've kind of carved that one out. And in many of those cases, they get away with it too. Well, Kathy Griffin holds the head of Trump, of a Trump mannequin that she decapitated up. She didn't get arrested. You say something negative about the wrong protective class in Europe, or for example, Le Pen. She was going to win in France. They arrested her and said, you can't run. Or the AfD in Germany. These types of things. Might not agree with them, but apparently they're being censored. So no, you guys do not have freedom of speech. That's you don't even pretend. Don't pee on me and call it rain. You know, I've seen this argument. You can be arrested in the USA for praying too close to an abortion clinic. We absolutely do not have free speech. There's a world of difference between silent prayer next to an abortion clinic and harassing people as they go in trying to get a medical procedure performed. Okay? It's just a world of difference. Let's say a woman's walking in to get an annual gynecology checkup, and because she's going into a Planned Parenthood, these people here harass her, call her a baby murderer, throw stuff at her, try to prevent her from entering the facility. Those are the people who tend to get arrested. And then they play victim the minute they get arrested. Yeah, it's not freedom of speech in these cases. Yeah, there's probably 1 or 2 weird cases that are here and there, and they get resolved in the courts. But that's the world of difference between the police going out of their way, looking at Twitter feeds and arresting people. I don't know why Elon Musk gets involved in these things. I don't know enough about the AfD. I'm not German. I don't speak German. People say they're Nazis. The leader's gay, and she's dating like a Sri Lankan person. Never met a gay Nazi dating brown people, but okay. I don't know enough about them. I really don't. And maybe they are closet Nazis. Who the hell knows? Everybody's a Nazi now, by the way. So that means nothing to me. Any right-wing person's automatically a Nazi, according to people on the left. And so that's a vacuous thing. And I don't know why Elon gets involved in this stuff. What does it benefit Elon Musk getting involved in German elections as a South African immigrated to America whose business interests are primarily in the United States, and of Germany, you deal with people? I was just interviewed by Le Monde and The Big Whale and a few other French newspapers. And I said the same thing I say to everybody else. I have strong interest in U.S. elections because I am an American and I have opinions there. And on European elections, Asian elections, elections across the globe, I don't get involved. I deal with the consequences of whoever's elected. So if Macron is president of France, he's president of France. If Le Pen takes over and she's president of France, she's president of France. The AfD's in power in Germany. If Olaf is in power in Germany, who the hell knows? I don't choose that. I'm not a citizen of that country. I don't vote or participate in those elections. Whoever's in power, my only decision is, do I feel comfortable doing business there? Do I think there's rule of law? Do I think there's sufficient freedom of association, commerce, and expression? Do I think it's a good product market fit? Do I think it's a good marketplace? And if there is, then whoever's in power, I go and talk to those people and say, how do I do business with you? And let's negotiate. Let's figure this out. And if they're pro-business, they say, We're excited and we're ready to go. So Tesla, they want to do business in Germany. What the fuck business is it to Elon Musk if it's AFD versus somebody else? They should be focused on how do we make great cheap cars and compete with Mercedes-Benz and BMW and Audi. Why have the fight? Why alienate more than half the country for no upside? Whether it goes one way or the other way, what impact does it have on Elon's life? And these types of things. Just we got to save the European race. What the hell does that even mean? And what connection does he have to Europe? He's South African. Is it his European ancestors that came over and owned the emerald mines? Is that what he's worried about? He's in this very self-destructive spiral, Elon Musk, and of no benefit to himself, no benefit to Tesla. And I don't understand his thought process. He tells all of his employees at SpaceX, we want to make humanity a multiplanetary species. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make humanity a multiplanetary species. So we are going to Mars. Okay. So everything you do then should be viewed through that lens of how do we accelerate that? It's a cooperative exercise. You need to work with German engineers and Chinese engineers and Italian engineers and multiple governments and regimes. And the Elon Musk I knew when I was at CU Boulder was the Elon Musk walking with Obama in that famous picture when Obama made private space flight possible in the United States. And the Elon Musk who was working with everybody and who was a visionary. Now we have Elon Musk sitting on Twitter on his toilet, his pants down, shit, and his cell phone here, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hot take here, hot take here, hot take here, hot take here. And here's the thing, guys. Let's do a little social experiment. Let's try this out. You know, let's do this live. Fuck it. Let me sign in real quick. Get this done. Verify I'm human. Continue with Google. Really does not think I'm human. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and ask, and we're going to see what happens. So the crowning achievement of Elon Musk is XAI, and I'm going to ask it a question. Who is the largest spreader of misinformation on X? And let's see what it comes out to. All right. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to present my screen, and I'm going to move this over here and share screen, and I'm going to go ahead and share a window, new conversation. Here we go. So Elon Musk, you created X. You created XAI. Grok is your product. This is what you do. So I'm sharing my screen right here, and I ask your product, who is the largest spreader of misinformation on X? Based on available information from various sources, Elon Musk is frequently identified as a significant spreader of misinformation on social media platform. This assessment stems from multiple reports, analyses, and highlight his role both as an individual poster and owner of X, where his influence shapes the platform policies. Evidence supporting Musk's role. Grok assessment. Grok, the tool, talks about Grok, scale of reach, platform ownership, examples of misinformation. He's been criticized for sharing content that spreads false narratives. For example, a post by Blah highlights Musk sharing fake newspaper headlines and action emblematic of this type of misleading content, etc., etc. All right, give me specific examples. There we go. Let me just go on. This is his tool. Why does this exist? What the hell does this have to do with humanity becoming a multiplanetary species? How does this benefit him? How does this benefit the business empire? How does this benefit anything that he's doing? Because he wants the power and the attention, because he's got a fragile ego, and he's surrounded himself with a bunch of fucking sycophants. And every day they wake up and say, look how smart you are. Look how talented you are. Oh, you had another child out of wedlock with a blogger. How great. That must be amazing. You are a wonderful human being. Oh, you went and made half your people hate you. Oh, you must be an amazing guy. Oh, yeah, here we go. More examples. Tesla stock price, funding secure. Date. COVID-19 predictions and downplaying the pandemic. Okay, yeah, I'm probably guilty of that too. Reasonable people can, but this affects everybody, right? And we could debate that. This was self-inflicted. Why would he say this? Funding secured. It really wasn't. And then, of course, the 2020 election, it affects everybody. So I'll give him something there. Sharing fake news headlines. Okay. Well, why do these things exist? You know, there's old liberal media. The liberal media is so evil and so problematic. Right. But is your job to socially transform the world, or is your job to go to Mars? I thought you want to go to Mars. So you're saying is you're going to go to Mars with only Republicans. You're going to go to Mars with only people who agree with you. You're going to go to Mars with only one social philosophy. Great. If you're going to do that, then write it down. Where's the great philosophical treatise of Elon Musk? What human rights do you value? What value system do you have? What ethics system? Is it deontological or is it utilitarian? Do you agree with Peter Singer? Let's just talk about this stuff. Where is it? What philosophical lens do you look at the world through? No, you want to be the turbo genius who's good at everything, calls astronauts retarded and attacks people and punches down, especially the weak and vulnerable. You're one of the most powerful men in the world. You have $400 billion. You have hundreds of millions of followers. You're so powerful. Why do you care if somebody criticizes you? These types of things. I understand it because I deal with it every day, and people criticize. And when the criticism prevents business from occurring, like when Electric Coin Capital says there's only 189 developers on Cardano, that hurts Cardano. We have to address that. But when some person says that your rescue attempt in Thailand is not going to work, who's a subject matter expert, why do you call him a pedophile and he has to sue you over the whole thing? What benefit do you get there? How do you reconcile it? Why punch down? You own a rocket factory, you own Tesla, you own X, you own Neuralink, you own all these things. You could just do whatever you want to do. And you keep telling us that your only goal is to make humanity a multiplanetary species. I don't know, it's a crazy thing. And there's a better way to go about it. And it's just so frustrating when you see this person, because I know why it exists. It's you put a person in an environment where there's no oversight, no accountability, sycophants everywhere, and it's a death spiral, and they just become a megalomaniac, and the ego builds and builds and builds and builds, and the grandiosity gap between who you actually are and who you present yourself as grows. And eventually the whole apparatus is less about doing things. It's more about protecting your fragile ego and preserving the inflated view of who you are as a person. And builds a rocket every 2 days. Why does he need to do it? I don't know. You say something at a university about Palestinians, you get deported, and that's free speech. I don't agree with it. I think that's wrong. Now, they're not U.S. citizens. They're here on student visas. And in many cases, the deportations are connected to violent protests. I'm not aware of anybody who just nakedly said something negative about Israel and they got deported for it. Oftentimes, they were involved in protests where they physically committed a crime. They blocked off streets, they assaulted people, they destroyed public property or private property, these types of things. You conveniently forget that in the narrative. But in general, yeah, I think we should be more tolerant as a group of people. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to be able to criticize Israel without being called an anti-Semite. In the same token, it's perfectly legitimate to criticize some of the Palestinians for the things that they do as well. Remember, they elected Hamas. It's okay to express an opinion. We're a big boy society. We can do that. And I think it's absolutely wrong for us to say we can't live in a society where people are not allowed to express themselves. It's people should be allowed to express themselves. Charles, does white privilege exist? No, it does not. And it's just a manufactured construct by the racism industry. And it's a white privilege. Oh, so is I automatically, because I have white skin, automatically I'm successful or have a higher chance of being successful than somebody with brown skin. Oh, okay. It's the most racist thing I've ever seen in my life for people to say this stuff. They say, oh, that's your perspective because you're a white guy. I experienced racism growing up. I grew up in Hawaii and they called me Howley. They threw shit at me. They were angry for things I had no connection to and had nothing about. I lived in Japan. They call you gaijin. And you go into restaurants, they say Japanese only, and they don't even let you in because you're a foreigner. Experience these things, okay? And so I've been all throughout the world. Racism exists. It does. Differences exist. The racism industry that's been manufactured in America, what they tell a lot of young black people, especially blacks, but all races that aren't white, is if you aren't successful, it's because the man is against you. That's what they say. It's just a whole manufacturing industry. And the only thing we need to do is we need to create a gigantic government, turns over all the means of production to that giant government to rebalance the scales for equity and give it to you. That's what they say. And you can't accomplish anything. There's no way by your own merits you'll be able to rise. You can't get a good education. You can't economically get ahead in life. You can't achieve anything. You are, because of the color of your skin, forever doomed to be an underclass in society. That's what they tell people. It is the most demoralizing, disenfranchising thing I've ever heard. It's the most racist thing I've ever heard. You're meaning to tell me that Obama's children are never going to be successful because of the color of their skin, and some redneck that lives out in the Appalachia without running water and power, and parents are meth addicts, and horrible lot in life, has an advantage in society over Obama's kids because of the color of their skin. It's the most racist thing I've literally heard. And it's meant to divide people and make people hate each other. How about we just get back to a society where we just say, here are the standards, live up to them, and inspire people to go for those things. You should tell every person that you have the ability to thrive, and you just have to manifest your reality. If you want some greatness, go chase that greatness and go get that greatness and go get it done. And you got to fight. And it's not a white versus black thing. America hates poor people. We hate the impoverished. Poor people are disenfranchised in the United States. The system is rigged against the poor and wage slaves. And because of historical reasons and intergenerational reasons, there's a disproportionate amount of people who are in minority classes who are poor. And that's what you're experiencing. And if you take care of the poor people and you give them better stuff, everybody rises together. It's that simple. So if you just take all this DEI nonsense and you just focus on opportunities in poor areas of America, all of a sudden people rise. And you know what? People take care of their own. You take care of the people you grow up with. You take care of your friends. You take care of your family. You take one poor person, you make them rich. Everybody in their social structure rises as a result of that. That's one man's opinion. And then they'll have me read White Fragility, call me a Nazi. I didn't realize how ill-informed you are about everything. The white man trying to hold us down. Wonder if you can criticize Trump as he did Biden. I have so many criticisms of Trump. I criticize him all the time. You guys just aren't paying attention because it's whataboutism. Musk didn't con anyone. How are those self-driving cars working out for you? You like Dick Jones? You like those self-driving cars? They're coming next year. Trust me, bro. Or those robo-taxis. If it was up to Charles, you would euthanize anybody over 50? Oh my fucking God. You guys are crazy. You got a lot of your goddamn minds. Cheryl, since you started your live stream, Cardano is falling. Oh, it isn't now. Let's take a look. All right, we're going to the markets right now. Let's see what we got here. We're up 6% today, guys. We're falling? Okay. A pope like no other pope. Some, I assume, do good poping, but believe me, the new popes are not bringing their best. Oh, yeah. I'm in San Francisco right now for the first time in my life. There's Waymos everywhere. It's honestly incredible. Yeah, and they're not made by Tesla. That was my whole point. He's been saying for 10 years self-driving cars because LiDAR makes sense to put with optics. And Musk, for some damn reason, says, no, we can't do LiDAR. It's got to be optics only. LiDAR lets you see in the dark. LiDAR lets you see in occluded scenarios. And when you combine modalities together, you get a much better result because computer vision is distinctly different from the way human beings perceive the world. And then he said, LiDAR is a fool's errand. So this is the same guy as Big Arms. It's just an alt account. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing we did with the Big Arms. He's been banned. He's been removed. He's going to have to go and create his own feed for people now. That's true. LiDAR is the way. Now it's multimodal. You want to do solid state radar. You want to do LiDAR and optics and put those three modalities together. And what you do is you invest in reducing the cost of LiDAR and solid state radar and these types of things. And you know, your optics get better over time. And you don't say, hey, it's going to be fully autonomous. You say just every year it gets better. And that's how you don't lie to people. And because the lies that Musk told, they're going to have to spend billions of dollars upgrading hardware in all the Teslas. How's Ben Gortzel doing? Are they still working with Cardano? Yeah. I think Larry Net's still there. Ben's Ben. You know, he always invites me to the events. Yeah. For what we spent in Ukraine on the Ukraine conflict, everybody could go to medical school for free in the United States for the rest of time. You know, what's his face? Bloomberg donated a bunch of money to Johns Hopkins, and he set it up so that no one has to pay any tuition for going to Johns Hopkins now. We could do the exact same thing for every medical school, just for 1 year of the spending that we have there. War is expensive. And what do we achieve? Thoughts on Brian Johnson? We already talked about that. Could you really live to 130? Yeah. So what we're doing right now with hyperbarics and stem cells, my hope is a 30% reduction in biological aging. So I age 7 years for every decade. So in 3 decades' time, I gain basically another decade, give or take. And then with gene therapies like epigenetic reprogramming, like what Sinclair is working on, that's kind of the next major step. And I think we have enough headroom with improvements of the mesenchymal stem cells just by co-administering them with exosomes and other things. We probably can shave off another 2 or 3 years. So I age 5 years for every decade. So we call that longevity escape velocity, where you get 1 for 1. And I think we can get there. I will be at Dave Asprey's biohacking conference, May 28th to 30th. If anybody's listening from that conference, you want me to speak, I'll speak. And lunch with Dave last time I was there. He's a cool dude. What about Katy Perry? So I can dress up like a police officer. I can put on a soldier's uniform. I can put on a firefighter's uniform. And that doesn't make me a police officer. That doesn't make me a soldier. And that doesn't make me a firefighter. So I can hitch a ride on an autonomous rocket, go 60 miles up and come down after an 11-minute joyride. That doesn't make me an astronaut. Real astronauts, they have to go through 6 months plus of training. They go much higher up, and it's much harder to come down. And they come down with damage to their body from being in microgravity for such a long period of time. It's a very dangerous job. It's a very tough job. Hey, Charles, do you think a medical school is possible in Gillette? If so, possible timeline. I want to do it. I'm going to be in the 2030s. Yeah, but we are planning it. There's actually some land we're looking at there, and I want to do a very different kind of medical school. I'd like to combine naturopathic, functional, and allopathic medicine all into one program and do a 5-year program instead of a 4-year program. And I have a lot of ideas on how to put the pieces together for it. Riding a plane doesn't make you a pilot. That's an even better one. Yeah, okay, I'm going to use that one, Lucas. And watching porn doesn't mean you're having sex. Why longevity? Why not let things take their course naturally? Because there's too much to do. I would love to be able to spend 5 years living with the tribes in the Amazon. I'd love to be able to spend a year or two doing Arctic exploration or go scuba diving and discover underwater cities. I'd love to go and become a doctor and spend time with that. And I'd love to be able to master a martial art to completion, all these types of things. But you don't get to do all that because life is too short. And if you expand it, you get to do all those things. And I'm young. Let's go do it. Any books you'd recommend on mindfulness? Yeah, stuff from Jon Kabat-Zinn. Highly recommend. Tough question, but don't you think Cardano should limit the treasury usage in relation to the annual revenue so that funding only grows if the chain itself grows? No, because then how do you grow the chain? How do you make a strategic investment? That's like basically saying the following. It's so stupid. You know what you should do? You should spend what you make. Okay, so what if I take out loans to get an education to increase my potential future earnings? What if I take out a loan to get a car so I can get a better job? But you don't make all that money in 1 year, right? So you're going into deficit spending as an investment for the future. So what you're basically saying is we can never make a deficit investment for the good of the chain for the future. And if we're unwilling to invest in our own chain, why would a VC invest in our chain? Why would somebody buy ADA? Why would somebody join the ecosystem when the other chains are investing billions into their ecosystem? Make any sense to you? No, you only do that after you've won and you're sustaining something. I love this falsely extending your life. Oh, okay. So let's say you get cancer. You should just not treat the cancer. Let's say you get heart disease. You should just not treat the heart disease. Let's say that, you get shot. You should just not treat the gun wound because that's your natural life, right? Stuff happens and you can treat it and live longer, or you can not and live shorter. I would rather live longer so I can see more and do more. And that's a false extension, and I'm affecting my spirituality. What if with the additional time I get more spiritual and I get a deeper understanding and a richer understanding of spirituality? hundreds of millions of ADA coming out of the treasury. Now, when you have a stockpile of 1.7 billion ADA, would you like that ADA to be worth $3? Or would you like that ADA to be worth 10 cents? And if you make strategic investments now over 12, 24 months, we catch the bull run, we go back to our all-time high. We miss the bull run, we actually fall, and we're now in the top 50 instead of the top 10. What would you like? It's a symbol, and you have to make strategic investments. You have to bring people in. You have to grow the pie. And if you get it wrong, then you can say, you know what, let's be more conservative in the future. We built a stockpile up. It's not going to be diminished in 1 year. You have to make some decisions about how aggressive you want to be. I'd say now is the time to be aggressive. The D-reps have to decide. Charles, should I study category theory or cryptography? I mean, what are you trying to do? If you're doing functional programming, study category theory. If you're doing cryptography, well, what type of cryptography you want to study? You know, what do you want to learn about? Hash functions, symmetric crypto, asymmetric crypto, zero-knowledge cryptography? Do you want to learn about erasure codes? Do you want to learn about information theory? I mean, there's like millions and millions of things you can do in crypto. So never study a field. Pick something that you want to accomplish, something you want to build. For example, I want to build a secure messaging app. Okay, well, then there's cryptography that's involved in there, right? There's a whole information security perimeter you got to think about. Got to think about side channel attacks, software supply chain issues. You got to think about distribution, operating environments, all these types of things. And yeah, then you have to think, okay, how do I encrypt the messages? Well, I need to learn how the encryption protocols work. How do I do key exchange? You know, what type of cipher am I using? If it's a stream cipher for video, is it Salsa 20 or is it AES in stream mode? What is it? Okay, and then you're learning applied cryptography for this. Now, if you want to learn the theory of cryptography, there's a problem you want to solve. I am interested in homomorphic encryption because I think being able to operate on encrypted data makes sense. Okay, now you're learning both category theory and cryptography because there's a ton of algebra that's in homomorphic encryption. You learn about lattices, you know, you're learning about all these things. But you have a goal and you're building towards that. So every time you learn something, you'll have a practical application to connect that to, and then you work your way through the theory. It's just like Fourier analysis. Why learn it? Well, I want to learn about information theory and think about signals, and I'm really interested in removing noise in a communication channel. Okay, there you go. Fast Fourier transforms, and you understand that part of it. But that's how you learn. You have to learn by doing. That's why college degrees now are just so fucking worthless. They're absolutely useless. They're so useless because they have no connection to anything in reality. You know, it's just like a smorgasbord of different courses. And then there's like one or two applied things, and you write this useless thesis, and you come, you have no job skills, and you throw the person in, you say, go solve this problem. I don't know how to do that. It's like, well, figure it out. Oh, Lord. So what would you invest in besides IOG projects? You know, plenty of great things in the crypto ecosystem. I think EnMaker, Patrick, what you're building is great because you know how to sell. You know how to do commercial partnerships. You know how to work with the technology. You know how to go cross-chain. You understand crypto ecosystems. I love Sunday. I love Pi Lingingham. He's just a great guy to work with. And he's got the right mentality, scrappy guy. Midgard is a great investment as well. They're going to go to a lot of places. The SNEC community is a great investment. They're going to go a lot of places. Book is a phenomenal ecosystem as well. So there's a ton of people that are in Cardano that are doing interesting things. But outside of Web3, I highly recommend anti-aging and regenerative medicine. It's going through a huge flux. If I could do it all over again, you know, I'd be probably really interested in the quantum stuff. I love the metaphysics of it. I love the spirituality of it, but I just love the engineering. You know, go get a PhD in like quantum engineering and the hybrid where you learn electrical engineering, material science, and physics, and you learn all the computer science and these types of things, and go build a quantum computer. They're coming in 10 to 25 years, and it's going to change everything. It's so cool. Cognitive neuroscience is also a super cool field, as is complex adaptive systems. That's my problem, is I like too many things. And it's hard to, only get into one thing. With the Treasury, the Treasury, you have core, and really core has to be about strengthening institutions, no diversification, completing the roadmap that we have, commercial stuff like Bitcoin DeFi, and making Cardano a solid AVS system, because then we have areas of growth and liquidity. The next layer up is about marketing, brand, and growth. And so let's correct the information deficit. It's a bad deal when VCs won't invest in us. Let's create some proper growth hack funds. Let's get an incubation acceleration function, even if it's 10 to 25 million, let's get it in. And then let's fix all the broken windows. Get all the custodians to love us, get our stablecoin market where it needs to be, get the oracles where we need to be. Let's help get liquidity for the top 10, top 25 CNAs, whether it be indexes or getting them listed, these types of things. And that's how you walk the book up. And just make sure we're in the conversation and people understand the product marketing of Cardano. They know the telescoping protocol we came up with consensus, how Laos collapses back to Prouse in the event that it fails, but it's super scalable otherwise. That's the way to do things. The merits of extended UTXO, build up Aiken, build up those capabilities. You got to think in terms of those layers and get the right institutions involved. Incubation acceleration, cut a deal with either Techstars or Outlier or 500 startups. Start small, 10, 25 million. Security tokens, actually put the equity in the treasury. How about that? Stable coins. Let's mint half the supply that we push through the treasury into stable coins. That means every time we do a treasury round, 75 million or more is going into stable coins at Cardano. 5-10 years, you have hundreds of millions of dollars in stable coins at Cardano. We've insulated the base. Let's try to get a partner chain launched every year, a good one, a tier 1 partner chain. Let's get World Mobile where they need to be. Let's get Singularity Net where they need to be. I know you're working on AI agents. If you can do a better job than Ben, let's get you as a partner chain. Do an AI play, do an airdrop, just like Midnight's doing. Drop to 10, 20 chains. Commercial, market development. Get Vietnam, Nigeria, Argentina. The 3 fastest growing by percentage in population crypto markets. Let's have dedicated evangelism in each of those markets. Right now in Argentina, 1 out of every $7 is in crypto. Nigeria, 1 out of every $4 is in crypto in some way. In Vietnam, 32% of the population holds crypto. Think about it. These are huge fucking numbers. We should have dedicated sales teams there, take the top 5 largest companies in each of those jurisdictions, get them into Cardano. Let's go do it. I pay a performance fee for this type of stuff. Let's talk around it. That's the shit we should be talking about. We're going to sort out the multi-client diversity. We had the node workshop. We brought the people together. We got Project Blueprint. They've told the ecosystem what they need. Fully fund them. All right, you need 2 million. There you go. Done. Here you go, TX Pipe. Take it. Blink Labs, here, take it. Stop having part-time people. Work full-time on this shit. Get that done, and let us finish the roadmap. Let's get this thing through. Laos is going to be hard, and there's going to be a lot of work to do, and it's going to just be complicated. And there's a lot of good engineers. Let's just go get that done. Get it through. That's the kind of stuff off the top of my head, if I was in charge, I would do. But we don't have an executive function in Cardano. That was done by design to force decentralization. But it is frustrating because it would be pretty easy for me to just put a plan on the table and say, this is what we're going to do, guys. I am y'all president, John Henry Eden, straight to y'all heart. But I wish I could do that, but I can't. The Vietnam also has the entire anime group. Just saying, it's where all the Japanese anime is now made. Straight to your heart. Got another one to ban and delete, and he's gone. Do. Got to bring people together too. That's why the workshops are so important, because you bring people together, start talking about the commercialization of the platform, and then you come up with a lot of great business ideas, get things done. And the world's a big place. You just pick stuff. Just go get it done. I'm building a digital voting system next. Paper ballots is so archaic. I'd highly recommend a hybrid system. You have a paper system and a digital system, blockchain and paper together. That's peanut butter and jelly right there. Put those two things together. See what we're doing? We're putting them together. We're putting them together. They're getting put together. Oh, look at them. They're all put together. All put together. It's nice. Why? Because when you have both these modalities together and they audit each other, it's unhackable if you do it in the right configuration. You vote with a blockchain, creates a paper receipt. You vote with paper, creates a blockchain record. They're always together. And one side audits the other side. And what's nice is it crosses all socioeconomic classes, and you can vote with your phone. You deploy all the software and trusted hardware enclaves. And what's nice about it is if you have the right identity system, you have a perfect voting system. So I always tell people, because I've had people come to me from various states and they say, you should bid on this RFP for blockchain-based voting. I say, oh, that's great. What are you guys doing for your identity management system? And they say, well, that's not on the table. We're just going to keep our old identity management system. I say, I'm not interested at all. Because I don't want to build a really secure voting system if you have fake people that don't exist, or fake IDs or fake identities inside your system. I'm just building a really secure way of counting a person who doesn't exist or who is ineligible to vote. You have to do both. So you need self-sovereign identity, you need an on-creds, and you put that system in as your foundation. Then you give people the right to either vote on their phones through trusted hardware enclaves on a blockchain, or vote with paper, either or, and you have both systems there. And the systems have to reconcile. You have to have a one-to-one correspondence with both sides. And then you can check at any time your vote was counted correctly, and that the election system has integrity. And you have integrity criteria as an invariant inside the system. And there you go. You get it done. And we could design this system in 6 months to a year, best in class. And also, you can then have any ballot architecture you want. You can have quadratic voting. You can have linear preference ordering for your voting, like Condorcet or Borda. You can approval voting anytime you want. We could do that, but they have no intention of fixing the problem because they don't want to. Thought you were away doing something dangerous, Charlie boy. Did you miss the bullet ants? Like, that's a thing. We've been doing the bullet ants. We were talking about the bullet ants in the Amazon, canoeing with caiman and anaconda and spiders and all kinds of things, and the parasites and all that stuff. You missed all of it, Mark. Come on, Mark. You missed it. It's there. There's even a video, a professionally shot video. People body shamed me in it. You got to catch up, man. You got to keep up with the times. Ay, 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 ay. This guy. Seems homomorphic encryption would be required to prevent vote intimidation. No. You just need the ability to validate. That's a zero knowledge proof that it was recorded the way you thought, but only convinces you. Don't need homomorphic encryption. Can't you just have phone farms? No, because you have a unique registration. That's why you have to have the identity system, right? See how it comes together? Information security. Charles, what's your take on beard glitter? I mean, I'm the guy who was giving Smurfs a hand job, so what do you do? Charles, are partnerships with Ripple and Chainlink still being discussed? Ripple, yes. Chainlink, we're working hard on that. I have Nasrat's private number. We talked in DC every time we meet. We're like, yeah, we need to work together, and we start talking and everything. So Chainlink has us on the list for integration. They have some new framework that's kind of like Rosetta with Coinbase to do these integrations, and for some reason, it's just always like 3 to 6 months off. Ripple, on the other hand, things are going really well. We're going to add Ripple support to XRP support for Lace. So if you're an XRP user, you can hold your XRP in the Lace wallet. XRP is going to be part of the Midnight airdrop, and we're in talks with Real USD. So, I mean, that's as good as it gets, right? And the Flare people want to come to Cardano and do oracles with us. So that's a very strong relationship. And Dave Schwartz just invited me to speak at one of their conferences, and we're on very good terms. Just Chainlink has been difficult because there's no component of it where there's an interpersonal issue. There's no component where there's an economic issue. It's just always hard to predict, basically what the integration is going to take, because they have like a legacy way of doing it. They're moving towards a new way of doing it, but we're not really sure when and how that's going to happen. So we're kind of in this no man's land. No matter how many people I throw at it, and even when I talk to Sergey, he's like, we both agree we should do it. There's no problem. There's no bad blood. It for some reason, doesn't get over the line. And I'm not sure why. So I'll keep looking into it. I'll yell at JJ again, say, hey, what's the latest and greatest on this? It is something I would like to see. We need a tier 1 Oracle, but there's also Pyth, and then there's also Flare and others. And, you just keep adding, and you keep pushing it through. And I like the Chainlink community. I think Link Marines are good people. Again, it's like Sergey and I, we're the exact same person. We have the same fashion style. We have the same beard. We're the same body mass. There's no bad blood there. You used to talk a lot about Jed. What do you think of its performance now? Oh, it's doing fine. Let's take a look at Jed right now in Tap Tools. I think it's holding the peg. I had to peg there for a little bit and then went back. Where's my Tap Tools? Tap it, Dooley. Tap Tools. Tap Tools. There we go. Yeah, it's sitting at $1. Let's see here. Liquidity about 1 million. 3.2 million market cap. Yeah. Let's see here. 73 makers. Volume of 393,000. 436 transactions. They're still building up to Jed 1.7, but it needs a rebuild after 1.7. And it'd be nice to launch it as a partner chain. Did you drive the road to Honolulu? Well, I never personally drove it when I was growing up there because I left when I was 8. But I've been on it many, many, many times. How bad did the ant venom hurt? It hurt. It hurt so bad. That's okay. Did you ever finish reading The River of Doubt? Not only did I finish reading The River of Doubt, but I also went to the River of Doubt. All right, I'm going to take one more question. Endurance test, MA, this was. Cardano has stable coins. We have USDM, USDA. Are they a joke to you? They're great. They're awesome. I highly recommend you you work on them. Use them. They're just fine. Were you sure you was there? No, I wasn't on the Rio Roosevelt. I was in the Rio Negro. Different place. It sounds like a racist river. Racist Caymans. That's a good way to end it. Will you be back in Toronto? When will you be back in Toronto? I will be there for Consensus. I will be speaking at Consensus in Toronto. I'll also be at Tracy's event on Traceable. I love Toronto. It's a wonderful place. I always eat at Jacobs & Co. It's a great restaurant there. And some of the best cryptocurrency entrepreneurs in Canada. And overall, Canada has been very friendly for the crypto industry. It's where Ethereum was founded. And there's, a great culture there for entrepreneurship and innovation. So highly recommend it. And I'll see everybody there. It'll be nice to see all of our Canadian fans. Tam is coming and other people are coming because she's from London, Ontario, and it's easy for her to go out to Toronto. I think she went to University of Toronto as well. But all things considered, Toronto is where it's at. So until next time, everyone, this has been a very fun AMA. It's good to be back. Good to be alive. Glad to have 20,000 of you listening. And I'll see you soon over the internets.